much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man.
So tell us about kind of just your life, really. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into jiu-jitsu? Any interesting stories? How long you've been training? How long you've been a black belt? Give us the deal.
Wow, we're gonna be here a while. All right,
we got time.
So let's start off. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I lived pretty much my entire life in D.C. I went to school there. I went to American University, which is in D.C. I played basketball, Division I, for a year, and then I hurt my back. And that sort of played a big role in me getting into jiu-jitsu, because when I hurt my back, I couldn't do anything. So I couldn't lift weights. The doctor he especially did not want me playing any ball, because he said even if I were to go out and just jumping and landing lightning on my feet, even though I'm not playing with anybody, would affect my back. So I said, great. So I'm not doing anything. So I'm early 20s. And then during that period, I lived in South America for several years. I worked at Citibank in South America, and then I hated being in an office. and then the other thing is, I'm originally from the United States. I mean, yes, granted, all my family was there, which was great, but you miss where you're from. So I ended up coming back. But when I came back to live with my aunt, who's actually in the Greenwich area. So that's how I moved up north. Then during this time period, I meet a girl and we get married, and just living the normal life, I guess, if you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I'm working in the New York area, but I'm living in the Connecticut area, which meant commute was at least a good hour to an hour and a half, sitting on the Merritt Parkway.
Ugh. Traffic.
Which is this is terrible. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I have to do something. Like, I need to do something to kill this hour and a half of time of sitting here doing nothing and trying to do something physical. At the time, I was 33. I was not in any kind of shape, because after the basketball injury, really, I didn't do anything physical. I really didn't, I was never really into lifting weights, and it was very boring.
So from what age? So you got injured at how old were you?
I was like 20 years old.
So from 20 to 33, you just,
nothing, man. I think my only sport was drinking beer.
Not a bad sport.
No, it's not a bad sport, especially when I was in South America. As you got to understand, you're in South America, man. You're drinking almost every day. So and it was in Paraguay. So Paraguay is very hot and humid, mm-hmm. and it's like all year. So we drink just about every day. Mm-hmm. But I knew that I had to do something. I was recently a father at that point. I think my son was a couple of months old, mm-hmm. and I'm sitting there like, all right, I got to do something, man. Like, this is terrible. Like, I'm not doing anything at all. And now I've got to digress back to 1994. Mm-hmm. So in 1994, I'm in college, and I'm working at a video store. This is post injuring my back, mm-hmm. and I'm the assistant manager of this video store, and I happen to be working on Tuesdays. Now, the significant thing about that is that Tuesdays would always be the day that we would get promo videos. So you just get these free videos that aren't for rent or for sale, but you see what they are, and maybe you put them in your video store. Mm-hmm. So I see this one. At first, I thought it was a movie, and it was the very first Ultimate Fighting Championship. Not Ultimate Fighter, Ultimate Fighting Championship. We're talking Hoist Gracie. Mm-hmm. So I see this thing and I'm like, all right, this looks like a pretty cool movie. It looks very cheaply made, but you know what? I love martial arts. Let me go check this thing out. So I actually sit through this thing and I'm like, oh, this is real. And by the time it was, all said and done, and I watched the whole video. And by the way, I watched this video so many times that it actually just broke.
It just VHS.
Yeah, it was 1994, man.
Yeah, of course.
By the way, I'm 45, so I'm not, I'm not a young kid.
But he doesn't look like it. I want that for the record.
But so I said, wow, I want to do that. But of course, when we're talking 1994, if you look at the history, they were only in California. And at least there was nobody on the East Coast that I knew of. The internet was not that strong yet at the time, so there was no way to really find that. So now fast forward again to where I'm sitting in the car. Now we're talking about the very first Ultimate Fighter, which is the MMA show, obviously the UFC as we know it today. I watched this. I remember the very first one. I'm like, that's what I want to do. Not the whole MMA stuff, but the actual Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu part of it. So now we have the internet, and aside from porn, yes, you can look up other things. And so I look up, jiu-jitsu schools, and I just so happened to run across the Marcio's very first school that was on the other side of Norwalk. And all right, I'm gonna pay I'm gonna pay it a visit. And I walk in, man, it's in the basement of a restaurant. The ceilings are about 7.5 feet tall. I guess that used to be a gym because there was glass on the walls, but these glass by now were all broken from training. So they had tape on them. And it was very small. It was very small, and since it was a basement also, you could also see all the plumbing running through the ceiling. So I walk in, and I can't remember exactly who it was at the front desk, but I'm pretty sure they're not with the academy anymore. But I remember talking to the guy. I was like, yeah, I want to train. And that was it. I was like, I want to do this. They're like, have you ever trained before? I've never trained martial arts before. I was athletic in the sense that, I played basketball. I played, back in high school, I ran track. I played lacrosse and all these things. But, that's different from fighting, obviously. So, and my physique back then was, because I'm 5'11 and a half, if you want to call it 6 feet. And back then I was like about $145, maybe $150, sweat. Yeah,
small.
No, I was very skinny, very skinny. So I walk in, and there were these very big guys. There was one guy I'll never forget, and I still speak to him from time to time. His name is Sasha. He's a Russian guy, but we called him Drago because he literally looked like Drago from the Rocky movie. The haircut, the muscles, everything, and the way he talks is, "I must break you." So so he was a solid, 190, 195, but like muscle. And this was everybody at the gym. Everyone was bigger than me, everyone was stronger than me. And when I walked through those doors, you got to remember, this was so long ago that it just wasn't popular yet.
It was underground.
Yeah,
really.
it was pretty much underground.
Yeah.
And people really didn't have a gi. It was like a the top was like some blue gi from somewhere, and the bottom was like some other gi, which, the top was probably an A1, the bottom was probably an A4, but we made it work somehow.
Were they like karate gis? Or?
No, some of them were judo gis, but some of them were actual Brazilian gis that were brought from Brazil, but just like sort of passed around and down, to other people, right? Which, brings in this whole question of hygiene too, because some guys didn't wash their gis because that was the only gi they had. So, sometimes.
Was there a lot of no gi?
No. Well, okay. So when I first started, it was all gi. Obviously, Master Marcio is an old school guy, traditional guy. Everything was gi. And I remember, I don't even remember the first time I actually trained no gi, but I know it was like a year or two down the road, and I hated it. I hated it because I wasn't used to not being able to grip something, or, it was just so different. I didn't want to do it. So, but training, and it was crazy because back in those days, it's definitely like today, it's down to a science, the way, because it's a business, right? But back then, when Master Marcio first came, he was like, I'm going to run this gym like the gyms are run in Brazil. So when we would come in to warm up, man, we would warm up for like an hour. For an hour, and it's no easy warm up either, man. And then after that hour warm up, we would do stand up. So it was a lot of judo, and obviously the wrestling that was involved was, your basic single double leg. But we would drill that stuff for another hour. So now we're 2 hours into the class.
Yep.
And if you can make it that far, then the third hour would pretty much then be the ground technique. And then you would roll, then you would spar. But the thing is the thing about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially if you've never trained it, you use your body the way you've never used it before. And you use your muscles in ways you've never used them before. So even though you're a top fit guy, maybe you do CrossFit, maybe you, I don't know, whatever sport you do, maybe you run, there's a lot of guys who run, there's a lot of ex-wrestlers even. You come in and you start doing jiu-jitsu, man, it just starts, to take a toll on the body. Yes. And then, I would, the funny thing is that I would get, I'd get these terrible cramps at like 2 a.m, just from training for so much, not being hydrated properly, and so
you would train for almost 3 hours?
We would train for 3 hours, man.
Holy crap.
And now the thing is that I would train every day because I did not want to sit in that traffic. It came down to a mental thing where it was like I'd rather get beat up for 3 hours than sit in traffic for 3 hours. Because I felt like, okay, at least I'm doing something. Mm-hmm. I'm doing something physical. I'm learning something. Mm-hmm. And, instead of just sitting there in traffic and, giving the bird to like every other driver that's on the Merritt Parkway, right? But,
So you start training.
Yep.
You're getting smashed a lot, I imagine. You're the smallest guy there. You're just learning.
Well,
was everyone there? What were they, like white belts, blue belts?
Okay, so the way it worked out, so when Master Marcio came on the scene, he came on the scene with like 2 or 3 other guys. He just didn't open the school on his own, right? He had guys that helped him out because he had just come from Brazil, which, by the way, is hilarious because at this point his English accent was so thick. Luckily, I spoke.
Brazilian?
Oh my God! It's just his English accent. When he says, and like you would literally need a translator. But the great thing was that I spoke Spanish, so he spoke some Spanish, that sort of Brazilian, that Portuguese Spanish. So like I could communicate with him. Mm-hmm. But the other guys, man, it was just like I was like, I don't know how you guys understand him, But so. As I start to train, I literally am the new guy for a good 8 months. Mm-hmm. For 8 months I just got beat to hell. Mm-hmm. And then obviously because of the Ultimate Fighter and MMA becoming big, like now more guys are like, okay, we don't just need to learn how to strike, we got to learn how to do stuff on the ground. So that started to happen a lot. That cycle started to happen a lot. And then you'd see a lot of, newer people. And then I was like, all right, great. I'm not the new guy anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's just part of the whole process of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, man. It's just, and that's what makes the sport so great because you can't get lucky. You can't throw a lucky punch. You can't throw a lucky kick. It's something that you have to build towards. So when you first start out, that's just the nature of the beast. The only way you get better is to first lose, and then you start winning. But the great thing about training in the basement, man, was, and like I said, because it was back in the day, the IBJJF rules were actually different as well. There's a lot more rules now because it's become so big and popular, and the tournaments are so big. A lot more injuries occur, and obviously IBJJF is trying to protect the competitor from all these injuries so that they can compete. Mm-hmm. But back in the day, man, there weren't too many rules. But not just too many rules as far as IBJJF is concerned. What I really mean is, back in the day, man, it was like the wild, wild west here as far as having a school. So I witnessed a lot of dojo storming. It sounds like funny, and it's like, oh, they just do that shit in the movies. And no, man, I saw it happen.
That was a real thing.
That was a real thing.
You can go on YouTube and find like these Gracie challenges where they would basically do that. I don't know, maybe not storm the dojo, but they would challenge guys and...
See, that's the difference. the difference between dojo storming and challenges is that I challenge you, bring your guy here, we'll meet at 4, blah, blah, blah. No. Dojo storming is you, as another Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, say you take 3 of your guys, what they would do is they would sandbag. So if they were really a purple belt, they throw a blue belt on them. If they were a blue belt, they throw a white belt on them. You know, and you can tell right away. You're not a white belt.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what they would do is they would send these guys from school to school. You'd go from one school to school, because there really weren't too many tournaments back in the day. Those were the tournaments. So those,
Wow.
so those guys would come in and literally try to kill you, and hurt. Like, not even just, they would try to hurt you. It wasn't like I beat you.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna leave here with an injury. And they would do it at your school to embarrass you. But the thing is that Master Marcio, he knew who all these guys were. They're all Brazilian guys. They all know each other, which was great. Which was great because at this point, I'm a lot better. I was a lot better technically at jiu-jitsu, and I wasn't really scared of any big, heavy guys because every guy I trained was just big and heavy.
That was your life, basically.
That was it, man. You know. So it was great because sometimes a new guy would come in and Master Marcio would look at me, and what he would do was he would look at me and he would sort of just give me a nod of the head. And I knew that meant don't go easy on this guy. And when I mean don't go easy, I mean hurt him. Hurt him so he never comes back.
Oh, so this was a guy who was trying to, he was coming here to test.
He was coming, exactly.
Okay.
He was going to the gym to test.
He wasn't coming like, hey, I want to train, I want to learn. He was like, no, I want to come and beat one of your guys.
And then just leave and then go tell whomever. And
okay.
So in my history, because when I first started, I was an arm lock and triangle guy, because when I started jiu-jitsu, as Master Marcio's game was the triangle, right? So those were one of the first things I learned how to do, and I loved it. So I broke a lot of arms back in the day, and yeah, and so which is I'll bring that back to why I roll the way I roll today, and why people look at me like, wow, you're really not scared, of a big guy, rolling on you. So, and then I actually saw real challenge matches, but under locked door. So I remember, because when I first started training too, so Master Marcio was new to the country, but he also brought Neiman. And Neiman was a young kid. He was a blue belt at the time, so this is how long ago I'm talking about.
Do you know how old he is at that time?
Neiman?
Yeah. Is he your age or is he young?
No, I was 30. I was 30.
I have no idea how old
I was 33, and he was like 19.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
no, he was a young kid.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I'll always remember, because he also trained with you the way they train in Brazil. So I remember many times when I would train with Neiman, and he would get me into, he would submit me with pressure. It wasn't an actual submission. It wasn't a choke. It wasn't a joint lock. It was just pressure.
Like smothering?
Yes, smothering pressure.
Ugh.
He would either mount and smother the hell out of me, or from side control.
That's incredible.
And I would tap from that. And he would look at me like I was his worst enemy. And okay, so we'd go again, and then he'd do the same thing, and then I as soon as I felt it, I just tap. And then the third time he looks at me and he says, listen, I'm not submitting you. If you tap again, I'll smack you in the face. So now he's doing it again. I'm literally like crying inside, like, don't tap, which was great, because I think like you need all that stuff. You need to go through all those obstacles in jiu-jitsu to get to a really high level, man. So fast forward, now he's a purple belt, and I remember he was a purple belt, and some brown belt was talking shit and challenged him to a match. So I remember coming in one day to train, and there was 2 doors to get into the old gym. There was the actual door to the building, and then there was like a hallway, and then there was another double door that went into like our little basement. So as soon as the last guy walked in, Master Marcio turns around, he locks that door. And then he tells everyone, all right, everybody up on the wall. And we all get up on the wall like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah. Oh my
and
God.
then he says to us in his terrible English, like, everybody stay on the wall. No matter what happens, nobody move from that wall. If you move from that wall, you're never coming back here. So we're like, all right. So then finally, like, Neiman comes up, and then some other brown belt from Connecticut somewhere comes up, and I guess this brown belt had challenged, Neiman to a match. I don't really remember specifically the details. I don't know if it was like a full-on, like, they could hit each other type, but they were in the gi.
Like MMA or
Like
just,
MMA,
or just
yeah, or just poor. Like, I didn't know, like, but as the match, whatever. And there was no timer. There's no timer. There's no ref.
Yeah.
It was like, you ready? You ready? Go. And then, Marcio stepped back, and we were all on the wall. And it was just them two. And, I remember specifically Neiman had him in an armbar, and I see the guy tap. So Neiman lets go, but there's no ref.
The
The guy comes back on top.
Yep. I didn't tap.
So, exactly. So then Neiman breaks his arm. So that's...
Got him in the armbar again.
Again, and then broke his arm that time, right? So, it was those type of things, man, that I saw and that I witnessed, that I lived, man, that all feed into my jiu-jitsu today, man. And all those like little like weird different experiences, And
what do you think of sorry to interrupt
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
but what do you think of how jiu-jitsu has changed so much? I mean, when I started, jiu-jitsu now is so friendly, it's so nice. Even we have guests here at the school, and they're all about being nice, but having good training partners.
That's
how did it transition from like this raw?
Because I think what happened is that, so those 3-hour classes I was talking to you about, that warm-up that was an hour is now about 10 to 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
And the drilling and whatever, it's down now, and the rolling, and I think what it is that everybody understands here in America, it's a business. So when you have a business, you can't have a warm-up where the guy can't even finish the warm-up. He's never going to show up again. At that old gym that I'm talking to you about, we had a bathroom that was literally, the door was on the mat. So when you stepped off the mat, you stepped into the bathroom. The door was this thin wooden door, and you could hear everything that was going on in the bed. You knew if someone was leaking, taking a shit, but you could hear people when they were throwing up. I heard that more than anything else, because they could not do the warm-up itself. And so that was one thing. And then, the whole like dojo storming, I think that those things started to stop because it became so popular through obviously the UFC. And what happens is there's more tournaments now. Before, back in my day, it was like Naga and then some random tournament that you had to drive to like 2.5 hours away, either north or south of Connecticut to even get to. So like if you wanted to do a tournament, man, you had to be in it, because you were spending money on gas. You were spending money to be in the tournament, and you're spending all this time. Yeah, you're spending all this time. Like you're taking an entire day to fight about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So but nowadays there's so many tournaments, man. It's like almost like every other weekend there's some sort of tournament. And
I see what you're saying. So it almost seems like guys who were coming in, they couldn't. Also, there's two things. I mean, probably one. I mean, I guess I can say for morning class guys, we probably couldn't train for 3 hours, and like, cause we got to go to work and we got to do all this other stuff. So it almost was like, well, we have to adjust this so that more people will sign up and stick with us, because we have to, as much as we want to foster the culture of martial arts, we also have to kind of make profits and make money and stuff.
And that's the thing, man. That's the thing. That's one thing. And now I'm going to throw you a cultural thing, because my parents are from South America, so I went to South America a lot. The other thing, too, is Americans are pussies. Meaning, if it gets too rough, don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, so if like that 1 hour warm-up is too rough, like, no, I'm not going to pay money to do this. I'm not going to pay money to torture myself. When you're like in South America, or even, you know, not just South America, but other countries, man, you're like, all right, I'm here for this. Like, I signed up for a reason, you know? So, like, if you're going to drown me, fucking drown me. Like, I'm still going to stick through it. So that's also another, it's a cultural thing, too. It's like, you know, so I see it here a lot. It's just like, when it gets too tough, guys are like, yeah, you know, that's not for me. You know, yes, it is for you if you just stick through it, you know, and not just jiu-jitsu, you know, many other things. But like I said, so everyone starts to see it's a business, and so now so now you have to not just change how you structure your class, but like you said, you have to structure your hours.
Time.
You have to figure out, oh, here in the U.S., a normal person works from 9 to 5. So now you have to structure your class schedule around these schedules, right? So you have to figure, oh, well, this guy can't spend 3 hours in the gym because he also probably has a wife, kids, or something else to do. If he's going to spend 3 hours at the gym from 6 o'clock until 9 o'clock after working from 9 to 5, someone at home is going to be pissed, or he just doesn't have time. So what happens is you can't be consistent. Maybe you can do that once or twice a week, and now I can't do it every week, and now I can't do it. You know what? I can't do it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're right.
I can't do this anymore. I have to give up. So you started to see a lot of schools offering more schedules, and then here's the other thing. When I first started, there was no beginner's class or advanced class. It was just class. You know, it was like, there's the Shark Tank. You don't know how to swim, jump and see what happens. You know what I mean? And that's how it was. And that's you know, that's how I learned jiu-jitsu. So there was never a beginner's class. But now you have that. Now you have like a beginner's class. You know, other places have beginners, intermediates, and advanced, or you just split it up into two. And now, because there are so many more competitions, now you have schools that are just for competition. You have schools that are self-defense and sort of recreational jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So you have like this large menu where you can just pick. So schools know that. So they have to start to adapt to all these things, because what pays the bills are the students that walk through the door. So you have to make it friendly for everybody, even if someone is coming from another school, because in the day of tomorrow, maybe they have a problem at their school, and this always happens in jiu-jitsu. Someone leaves their school for whatever reason, so they say, oh, I'm going to go to that place because, I don't know, they're nicer, whatever, the culture's different in that school. So you have to be that way, you know? And it, you know, like I said, it's so there's just different types of schools, obviously, where we train. It's more of a self-defense based jiu-jitsu school, because Master Marcio is old school and he believes very much in self-defense, which I do too, because I think it's silly that, you know, you go train 10 years and someone punches you in the face and you're out. That's very silly. So, you know, and then what I do is I do recreational jiu-jitsu. I don't do sport jiu-jitsu in the sense that I'm not going to go and do 20 tournaments in a year, which a lot of guys do. And you can see how big the sport has become and the tournaments, because before, when I first started doing tournaments, it was only like 3 age groups. It was like kids, teenagers, and adults. And when I mean adult, I mean 18 to 100, you know, and that was it. And now you have even like the masters have their own tournament, you know, so that's how big it is, and that's how many people are doing jiu-jitsu. And more people do jiu-jitsu because of movies and TV. You know, they see all these things, you know, and they're like, oh wow, you know, that guy does, you know, that guy, you know, you start hearing of all these movie stars who are black belts. You're like, wow, that guy's a black belt? No way, you know. So
Well, it's funny when you mention movies because you look at some of the old Donnie Yen movies.
Yeah.
And he's heel hooking guys.
Yes.
He's doing like
no one knows what that is.
Yeah, I know. And actually, after I think it was probably once I was at Blue Belt, training 6 months or a year. I was a year at that point, and I'm watching some of this stuff, and I'm like, oh, this guy's doing jiu-jitsu. This is awesome. Like, but probably no one else, and like for that time period too, no one probably knew what this guy was doing.
Going on, except for those guys.
Let me ask you. So, it seemed like back in the day, I mean, it was a rough, very warrior culture.
Yep.
And then over time, as a result of, hey, we have to, we want more people, brings in more money, we have to adjust to kind of fit consumer demand. Do you think that the people who are training today, like, I mean, we train with killers. There are a lot of good guys. Do you think that maybe as a result of getting away from that warrior culture, that maybe we've kind of watered down jiu-jitsu, or as the result of opening up to more people, resulted in actually these nerd assassins, I would call them. Some guys.
Yeah,
look at them, what are your thoughts?
I think it's the latter because, I don't want to say that jiu-jitsu has watered down, and I'll give you an example. Because of these guys, like all the guys out of the Henzo Gracie Academy. Because I'll give you my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I, for example, I think, and I understand why IBJJF has the rules the way they have them. Mm-hmm. It's to protect the competitor from injuries. But I feel like those competitions are very watered down. Mm-hmm. And I've participated in some, and I've seen plenty where I look at it and I can see a guy who is just maybe not as technical as the other person, but since he's a competitor, he has more cardio than the other person. So he's not relying also on his technique or any submissions. He's just relying more on really his cardio and his strategy just to rack up points. I will never forget, I saw this one match where the dude he racked up like 30 points. I'm like, why don't you try to submit him at like 15? And and so that turned me off. But then once it started to go to these no-gi submission only type tournaments and ADCC, which has been around forever, and which is funny because the funny thing is that really the top guy in grappling is the guy who wins the open weight at ADCC. That's your number one guy. If you want to say who's the best grappler in the world, that's the guy. That's the guy who's the best grappler in the open weight ADCC. Because the ADCC, there's really not too many rules. Obviously no eye gouging, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As far as grappling is concerned, that's who you're looking at. So, so that makes it, that makes it more appealing again. So I think while I was training, I started to see these things, and then I started to, at first I would train very, traditional jiu-jitsu with rules type. Oh, you can't do that. No, that's leg reaping. Don't do that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Or whatever the rule is. So then you're just training just a certain set. You're not really training the whole thing. It's like you have a picture and you're just zooming in on one half, but you don't see the entire picture. So
I think that's a perfect segue into the fun topic, is that anyone who rolls with you knows that you are a very proficient leg locker.
Yes.
And I've asked, I pretty much ask every black belt I talk to about this, which is why it was, and I think I have a pretty good idea of why at this point. It's just really interesting to me that legs were really kind of frowned upon. Even when I started, it was like, hey, like what about this ankle lock and these other things? And it was like, don't like, here's a straight ankle. It's not, no one really kind of knew how to do it as well as the way you've taught it, as far as I'm concerned. But why was there such a, in your opinion?
And like I said, man, like the old school.
It was just for MMA, right? It was designed around MMA stuff.
I mean, everybody's probably seen the Joe Rogan podcast with Danaher, because if you're really looking at it, the textbook way of doing it is you take the person down, you get 2 points, you pass their guard, you get 3 points. You get knee on belly, you get another 2 points. Now you're mounted, you get more points.
So it's a
now you have
competition.
Yeah, I think so. And I think but not just, but as Danaher explains, is that the point system is there because the better pins you get, the more points you get.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you're trying to get to the mount. That's the position you want to be in.
And it's designed in a way that it's like that because if you were in a real fight, you're in an advantageous position.
Exactly.
If you're in mount, if you have the back.
Exactly.
These are because if you're in a real fight, then this is where
I want to be mounted, man.
Yes.
I want to be smacking you,
Yes.
and even if I'm not smacking you, you can't hurt me
Yes.
if I'm mounted.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and like I said, like Master Marcy was a very self-defense oriented person because of the way he learned jiu-jitsu. So, I think all these things, like I said, man, it would be. I don't even remember the first time I saw a footlock because it was like once in a blue moon. And as you know, if you don't really train something consistently, you'll never use it. You'll never use it.
And legs are a totally, and this is what is so amazing. Like, after training under you for a while and everything, even when we first met a while ago, anyone, and I'm sure this goes for everyone who's rolled with you for like the first time, right away you realize this is a totally different animal. Like you will give up, like you're very weird to roll. I don't know how else to say it. You have a very unique style where you will give stuff up and give stuff away, and they'll be like, oh, just get this arm guard. No, wedge. All of a sudden I'm in a heel hook, and it's like mind blowing for someone who doesn't train that stuff. And it's
so let me start back to where I actually got started with.
I always love hearing.
So there's a really great guy, really good competitor. He's a championship black belt now. His name is Omar Kadi. And I remember he came to the school, and I think he trained like under Marcelo Garcia, and he was exposed to the whole leg attack system back in the day. So first few times I rolled with him, it was all right, and then he was like, "Let's do leg locks," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, is it all right if I do leg locks on you?" And I'm like, "Sure, whatever, man." Now, mind you, I just got my brown belt. He's like a 4-stripe blue belt or whatever. So we start to quote unquote roll leg locks. I ended up feeling like a white belt, man. And he had he has a younger brother, but at the time his younger brother was like 15 or 16. He's a white belt in jiu-jitsu, right? But he was training as an MMA fighter. So, but he was obviously doing all these leg locks with his brother as well. So I'm rolling with him. He's getting me in all these leg locks, man. And it was like literally he was just taking my foot, pulling it to his hip, and just finishing. Mm-hmm. It was almost like I was like, it's not like I was letting him. I was trying to not get foot locked, but it was just happening. I was like, wow. And I said to myself, all right, one of two things can happen. I can either get really pissed off right now and be like, fuck you, I'm never rolling with you again, which, by the way, you should never do that. The guy there's always that one guy who's got your number in the gym. That's the guy you want to roll with.
You're so right.
That is the guy you want to roll with, because the more you avoid him, it becomes more of a psychological thing. So then when you have to roll with that guy, he will destroy you and your heart and soul as well. So that happened with me and him. At first I didn't want to roll with him, but then I thought to myself, no, I have to. Because if I really want to learn this whole thing, like I have to put my ego away. Like I understand I'm a brown belt right now. Who cares? Whatever. I'm going to do this thing. And mind you, back in those days, no one was teaching leg locks. No one really was. And there was really no...
And still today, no one's really teaching.
No,
it's starting to.
Exactly. So there was really no YouTube videos really either.
Oh, no.
You know what I mean? And there was not too many DVDs, but...
Well, if you remember, do you remember Eric Paulson?
Yes, absolutely.
When, and to his credit, I mean, he was probably one of the earliest guys showing that stuff. But what I don't like about those videos are, he'll be like, you get in this position, do this, and then like the guy's like, oh, tap, 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 tap. And it's like...
And you have no idea what happened.
You miss all these like super
critical details, yeah.
And it drives me nuts because you're just going over so many things. And it's almost like they're relying on just like this super fast, like no, like there's a lot of technique, and if you can master that technique you go over, you become so much more deadly.
So so then so then when we would roll, then at first it was like typical, like he would always finish me, and then it became a thing of, okay, you finished me last, okay, you couldn't get a leg lock on me, I defended all of them, and then it was like, all right, I leg lock you, he leg locks me, I leg lock you, and it was it became a back and forth, and there was never ever a threat of an arm lock or a choke when we rolled. Never. It was completely, we were, because he finally found someone he could train with and make his game better, and I was at that point learning. And then he left, the academy, and I'm like, man, what am I gonna do now? Like, no one's doing leg locks, and I didn't want to do them on people who didn't know him, because I didn't, I wasn't sure what the rule was too.
This is half the battle. So you have like a skill set of like entry level leg lock stuff or medium level, whatever it was. So how did you go about training leg locks? Like, because there's a taboo. There are a lot of people don't want leg locks done to them. So how did you? So
this is what happened. So at that point, because of the way my scheduling worked out, and when we go back to this whole thing about schedules and jiu-jitsu, there was Master Marcio opened up a morning class. At first it was at 7 a.m., but 7 a.m. was tough because for some guys, like, I'm not gonna make it to work if I train from 7 to 8. Like, I'm not making it to the city from here at 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever. But then they changed it to 6 a.m. and now you had more guys coming in and whatnot. And so I started to train, and I knew all these guys, and I said to them, is it all right if I work leg locks with you guys?
Are these guys that are black belts today at the school? Maybe people I would know, maybe?
So they're not black, well, no, not black belts yet, but so Michael Darda, who's a brown belt. Then you have Jeff Dawson, he's a 4-stripe purple belt, but he's a brown belt in essence. And then I don't think anybody from the 6 a.m. class is still here from back in those days. But for example, those guys are great at escaping leg locks because of me. And they know, right? But the great thing about doing it with them was that no one was showing me anything. Because also my instructor at the 6 a.m. class back in those days, he didn't like leg locks either. And he didn't like no gi either. He was a traditional gi guy, pass the guard, submit from the back and all that stuff. So he didn't show any leg locks. And I was like, all right, I need somebody to show me. So finally I look online and I find Dean Lister's very first DVD set, the Catch System. And it's great to watch because Dean Lister, he just sounds like one of those goons who's going to beat you up after school, when he's teaching. But
was he one of the first guys kind of demonstrating leg locks at a competitive level?
Yes, and he was also the first guy who was really just pulling them off as well. He was, I think, because I've watched a lot of his old matches. He didn't quote unquote have a system like Danaher does, but what he did have was one of those things where he did it so much that he knew that your defense to something was something, so he had the answer to it. So it wasn't so much of a system as it was like, all right, you roll out of this, you're rolling into this, you roll out of that, I still have this answer for you. And he was very effective at doing it.
And probably a lot of guys only knew that one escape, and he had the answer, and then they didn't know.
That's the other thing, man. The other thing was the guys had 1, 2, maybe 3 answers, and that was it. So I would watch these DVDs, of course, like every white belt, and then come and try and do them at the gym. And what I found was that, and maybe you see this from my teaching, there's very little detail involved in these videos, man. Like I had to really, I stopped listening to what he was saying, and I would watch what he was doing. And then I'd say, oh, this is where the hips have to be, this is where the knee has to be, this is where the elbow has to be. And so it was just trial and error. I got submitted a lot. I got submitted by a lot of lower belts because I was trying, all these different types of leg locks that weren't working at the time. But then once things started to flow and I started to understand a little bit better, Then it started to work, and then I started to learn more about, as I was rolling, about body mechanics. When the body's in certain positions, there's certain ways that the body stops moving. It can't move anymore. And then there's certain ways that you can manipulate your opponent's body to do what you want it to do, even though the guy doesn't know that. And then slowly but surely I started to learn, like, all right, if I want a leg lock, I have to use my legs. Because after one roll, sometimes, even with a white belt, the entire time I'm trying to use my hands to pull the leg into me and to finish, I would get so tired because my two hands are fighting his one leg or even his two legs. And so I started to realize, oh, okay, now, so over the years, I started to see all these different things. And then you start to get to where it is now with like Danaher and his whole system. You know, after watching that DVD, that was it. Like, that was it. Like, then I was able to, you know, take that and be like, okay, now I got it.
So, like, before, so you've obviously seen that video. Where were you at, kind of, in comparison to where Danaher's at with his system? Were you similar, close, or completely blown away? Where were you at?
Well, here's the thing.
Because you were doing leg locks. I mean, you were doing leg locks before that video came out.
I was doing leg locks before that video came out, but I wasn't doing like heel hooks. It was mostly straight ankles and knee-bars because of the whole traditional jiu-jitsu. Say, hey, you don't heel hook the white belt, right? Yeah. So it was almost like I closed the door off to certain things to keep it into the rules, if you want to say it that way, right? Because obviously, as far as right now, as far as I understand, from white belt up, they can only do straight ankles. And obviously you can't heel hook in IBJJF, you can't knee reap, so that, you know. But with this whole submission only style tournaments like EBI, man, like EBI was the first one, you know. Now you got, you know, Polaris as well, and you know, there's all these different, now you got Kasai, which is like the big one now.
I've never even heard of that one.
It's the one that was in the city. So.
Oh, okay.
So there's all these submission only tournaments, and now guys are being attracted to that. So we go back to my no gi, not liking the no gi. Now you know me. It's rare you see me in a gi.
Yeah, I love it.
It's very rare you see me in a gi. Does it mean I don't like the gi? No, I love the gi. I love the gi, but I use my no gi to really strengthen my gi. And you know this when I tell you guys, watch out, I'm wearing the gi today, because now I'm deadlier, because now I have stuff to grab onto. So you know, and obviously this shows the evolution of the way the schools are. So before, even at our school, every day it was gi, you know. And then there was an introduction to no gi, and then kind of guys were like, I don't want to do that, and so no one would really show up for no gi, and then that went away, and then then it came back a little bit, but now it's something that guys want to do because they see all these guys like Gordon Ryan, Nicky Ryan will really
Gary
start
Tonin.
back using, you know, Gary Tonin, and you know, all those guys. So guys love the no gi too. Yeah. So now even in the schedule you see it. There's 2 days out of the week that is specific to no-gi training.
I know when I say back in the day when I started, but it wasn't that long ago. I feel like really this is a whole new, it's Jiu-Jitsu 2.0 as far as I'm concerned. And it's awesome. And I remember no-gi being tough on guys because it'd be a lot of headlocks and a lot, you know, people's necks were getting messed up, and now it's like when it's no-gi, it's like, oh no, now we're doing leg stuff. And so it's kind of changed that whole dynamic.
Right, exactly. So, you know, and this goes to something else. So back in the day, when I first started training, there was no real, let's call it a curriculum. There was no, it was like Monday you saw, I don't know, something from the guard. Tuesday you saw something from like the back. You know, Wednesday you saw something else. Thursday you saw. By the time Friday came around, whatever you did on Monday, dude, you had no idea. You just forgot. Sometimes even like, during class, like I have no idea what the first move was, you know. So when I was lucky enough to start teaching as a brown belt, and it's funny because it's true. Once you get your black belt, because like the journey at first is to get that black belt.
Yeah,
man.
and then when you get close, you're like, no.
Yeah, but it changes, man. When you do get your black belt, it changes because you go from being the student to now, quote unquote, being the teacher, but you're still a student because now you're learning how to teach. Knowing something and transmitting that something, they're two totally different things.
Well, and I think you're even still learning stuff.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
And that's, this is one of the things I've thought about is that I remember going from every belt I've gone, when you go from white to blue, when I got my blue belt, you feel inferior. You're like, I don't want this, I don't deserve this, and I have to do something to earn this. Use the other one.
When I got my brown belt. When I got my brown belt, I was like, please don't give me my brown belt.
I felt that about my purple. I felt that honestly about every belt. I got my blue belt and I go, I don't think I deserve this. But, it happened. And so then it happened. Then my thought process is, well, now I have to earn this. Same thing with my purple belt. And, I was like, oh, God, I am not ready for this. Because I see other purple belts and I'm like, I'm not at that level. But, if Master Marcio says it,
Wait till you get your black belt because then you have a target on your back.
That is my thought exactly. And then my thought, even to that, is when you're a black belt, you're a new white belt in a different realm.
Exactly.
Like right now, all of us under black belt, we're all like kind of in the pond or the lake or whatever. But when you're in black belt, you're in the ocean. And it's like the ocean has megalons in there, or whatever they're called.
So much.
There's
and this is what I always try to tell all the students. Maybe there's a move or a position or something that you don't like, or maybe it doesn't, quote unquote, fit your body type, and you don't like to do it. Unfortunately for you, there's someone else who does like to do it. So you need to know it in order to handle that person. Because the only way to defend something is to know how to do it. When you know how to do whatever move it is, whether it be a leg lock, arm lock, whatever it is, you need to know how to do it because all right, he needs this to finish it. You take that one thing away that he needs and now there's no finish. So, I think that's really important for everyone who trains jiu-jitsu and even life, man. Sometimes you just gotta try something that's, and you may like it, you may not like it, but you say, hey, at least I tried it, So, I think that's one of the important things. But when I started teaching, I kind of, like I said, there was no curriculum. There was no like, hey, this is,
we're gonna do side control this week.
Yeah. And you know what would happen sometimes? Let's say if there was an MMA match or some big mundials and somebody won on some specific move, that was the move you were going to see. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of like a Gracie breakdown to that move, and like, all right, this is how you do that move, right? Yeah. But it had nothing to do with what you did the week before, So it's just like, all right. So it's almost like you're just grabbing at different things, and then you're like, oh, you have to put it together yourself. And I think what you're going to start seeing now is you're going to start seeing guys, because it takes about an average of 10 to 12 years to get your black belt. For average Joe, non-athletic, just whatever.
Come 3 days a week.
Yeah,
that guy. Consistency.
10 to 12 years. But I think even that guy who comes through, I think now all schools have a curriculum. Of this one move flows into the next move and flows into the next move and flows into the next move. And I started to do that on my own because I wanted to take the way I learned jiu-jitsu and not make it better, but just improve on those aspects of it. And then once I started doing that, then I started to see guys really get things quicker because whatever we do this week, the base of it was the week before. So if you didn't know what we did the week before, now you're getting it, and then we just keep adding to it. Yeah. And then we go to something else, but then we revisit what we did.
Yeah. I remember, you're exactly correct. I remember when my first teacher, Matt Martindale, he was, I think, a 4-strict blue belt at the time. And I'll never forget, so we went over the arm bar, the omoplata, the triangle, and I'll never forget the day where he's like, guys, also, so it was, taught us all this stuff, and then on like a Friday or whatever it was, He's like, now watch, you do this arm bar, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, you can go for the omoplata. Oh, this doesn't work. You go back to the triangle. This doesn't work. You go back to the arm. And I was blown away. Like, I never thought, you're thinking this is, individual moves, but no, they all connect together. And you're exactly right. How just this, now there's a curriculum. Like, now there's this sequence of these things, and there's stuff you can do from side control and mount and the back.
And
it's systematic now.
It's a very systematic, and the thing is, and it starts from the feet. It starts from standing. It starts from standing. You show a takedown. You show whatever the guard pass into whatever submission, and it just, and then you keep working on that, week after week, month after month, because how much can you really learn in a year? Are you going to learn a move a day in a year? No, that's impossible. So what you try to do is you try to just break it down. The less you do, the more you actually learn it quicker. Because I found in my experience that, and especially with the basics, once you get the basics down, the fundamental stuff, then you can just start to play and do all the quote unquote like fancy stuff. Start berimboloing into whatever, So that's what I find. So that's the way I like to teach, and I love to teach and give as much detail in the move as possible.
Yeah, were you always kind of like that, very detail oriented?
I was always very detail oriented. That's just who I am, and some people call me anal retentive and all that stuff and whatever. Because like if I want the phone to be like this and it's like this, man, and it's just a centimeter off, I will fix it. I'll come, it's gotta be like this. But
I think as a student that's really valuable though, because
if you just look in your experience, how many times has somebody shown you a move and it's not worked? It looks exactly what he did, but it's not working. But it's because one thing was off, and that one thing that's off is the move's not going to work. That's why I don't believe in all these things that you can get your belt online, man. Can't get your belt online, man. I'm sorry, that doesn't fly with me because of this. Jiu-jitsu is more feeling than it is of actually seeing. So I try to, and I know how after teaching, because now it's going to be 3 years that I've been teaching now.
Only?
4 years that I've been teaching. 3 years I've been a black belt. 4 years that I've been teaching, and I know where everybody always messes up because I was there. And I know that no matter how much detail you get, you're still going to mess it up. So I always, and you've been to the class where I'll show you the move once or twice and I'll let everybody do it. And I just walk around and I see everybody messes up at the same spot in the same place. And then I always get this, hey, Professor George, I can't get, why am I not getting this? And then I show it to you again. And I make sure that you see the detail that you need, and then everyone's like, "Oh." Yeah.
I can say that as I've gotten more experience from blue to purple and everything, and paying attention to those small details, which is why I'm glad you're really detail oriented, because I don't even have to ask questions then, because you really go over everything. It's systematic. It's like foot here, knee here, hip here, arm here, head here. Like it's really systematic. I think shoulder here.
Yeah. So
it's good.
So the one thing about like watching, like for example, the Danaher videos, right? Because I look at what he does not only to learn it, but to see the way he teaches, right? So he always throws out that whole word about the concept, and that really helped me out a lot. And now you guys hear me saying that a lot. Sometimes it's not about teaching you exactly the exact move. It's teaching just the concept, just meaning. I don't have to show you where to put your hand, where to put your foot, or where to put. It's about just body positioning. If I can get my hips underneath your hips, I will always be able to sweep you, and your weight will never be an issue. So if I can teach you that concept, and you figure out how to put your feet and it makes it when I show you that much easier. So when I try to teach new guys who come in for the first time the guard pass, I don't show them the guard pass first. I put them in somebody's, you've seen me do it, I put them in somebody's guard, and I say, hey, look, I want you to get from here, out of his legs, around, and to the mount, because obviously that's where we want to end up in the self-defense situations, we want to end up in the mount. You try and do that. He's just going to try and stop you from doing that. So now you do this a couple of times, Now you've been there, you understand, Jesus, this, that, and the other. So when I show you the guard pass, you go, oh, that's why I was getting swept, or that's why this was happening, or that was happening. Oh, this is, yeah, this is why, this is how I open the legs.
Yep.
You know, so I want to also just, at the end of class, I try to teach you that whole concept. So like the most important concept that I have for leg locks is the whole 2-on-1. If 2 of my legs are on one of your legs, you're in trouble. So I always just try to just teach that. And you know, it's funny because I will roll with white belts, I will roll with blue belts, purple belts, brown belts, and black belts. And every roll looks the same because no one knows what to do when someone starts to grab your legs or starts to grab your feet.
Yeah, that's why it's so. That's why, you know, and I'll say so obviously I was training for a long time, and then I took kind of a year or so off because I was working. When I came back, it was tough, and I remember thinking, at one point anyway, kind of maybe, I don't know, a month into it, you know, it was frustrating because all these white belts who were training on you for maybe 4 or 5 months were heel hooking the crap out of me. That was frustrating. You know, I had this purple belt. I have to be so good and everything. And I had to get I just wasn't. And it got to a point where I just was like, I remember one day I was so beat up and sore because, you know, I'm still kind of getting used to it again. And I remember just thinking, wow, like for the first time I was like, I know I've always said I'm going to do this forever, but like right now I almost think I might quit. Like I might just give up. And then for 2 days I really kind of thought about it, and on the third day I just was like, I'm gonna go train. And then it was just kind of that funk. And then I went and I trained. I was like, okay, no, I love this obviously, and you know what, throw the ego away. Like I don't care what belt I have. These guys have been, like, objectively speaking, these guys have been doing this. They're learning under you, doing these leg locks. If I want to do something about it, I have to roll with the hardest guys. I have to get submitted a lot. I mean, this is almost relearning everything I did back in the day when I started again, only it's a new game. It's legs, not the top game anymore. And so, you know, it's so so everything always evolves. You know, everything always evolves to something better. So that's why I make it a point for me, you know, because I teach the morning class. I make sure that, you know, we do some sort of technique. You know, on Mondays we do a technique in the gi. That same technique we do Wednesday in no gi. It's really important to see the difference between the gi and the no gi because of the grips, obviously. You know, Tuesday we obviously work on takedowns, and then Thursday I show you some form of leg lock. So you're getting a leg lock every week, whereas a lot of places show you a leg lock once a month, once in a blue moon, you know. And I pride myself on trying to always be the best, so that, you know, I'm not trying to pretend I'm some sort of leg lock guy and that I don't know how to really leg lock. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, anyone who would roll with you is going to know right away. You really do know it.
And not only that, but one time this one black belt, he was a 3rd degree black belt from I don't know where, and we were talking, and he was like, so if someone grabs your leg, do you just tap? I'm like, of course I don't tap. You know, so that, you know, that drove into like, all right, I'll make sure that if someone gets me in the leg lock, that I know what I'm doing, to the point where someone thinks they have me and they really don't have me. And the only way to do that is obviously to get caught in something. You know, whether it be a leg lock or an arm lock or any submission. You know, when you want to become a black belt, you need to have been in every bad scenario that exists. Because when you roll and you get in that bad scenario, you know you're calm and you know the door that you need to use to get out. So same with the leg locks, you know. I make sure that, yes, I do know how to apply them, but I know how to escape them as well. But I think what helped me was through that whole trial and error thing. No one was showing me anything. So, you know, it was mostly me just trying to apply these things. Oh, this didn't work. Oh, that didn't work. So, and now I'm trying to show that once every week. So every week I am showing you some form of leg attack, you know, and then trying to show you the concept of the whole, like, you know, the 2-on-1. I got 2 legs of mine on yours. And the great thing about that is, and you know, that goes back to the whole Danaher thing, talking to Dean Lister, why would you ignore 50% of the body? I think one of my best setups to a leg attack is actually the Kimura. I love to do that, because the more and more you have to defend that Kimura, if you don't, I'm going to finish it. Or I'm going to, usually what I like to do is I go Kimura and then I go that reversed arm lock. But what I really love to do is guys try to turn their bodies to pull their arm out. But when you turn your body to pull your arm out, you're essentially, you're bringing your feet towards me, and I'm waiting for that moment. So, and then obviously I'll just grab your guys' legs, and then I'll finish with whatever I want to finish with.
Yeah, that's one of the concepts you taught me, definitely, is that, listen, no, like, if you have arms, you can attack, you know, the head, arms, legs, like, always be attacking. They're always, because it's so singular when you're in, when, you know, especially with standard jiu-jitsu, I'll say, you're focused on the arms, the chokes, this and that. You're not worried about your knee, or, you know, your feet, or any, or leg position at all. And now when, you know, after training with you for a while, it's like, no, you have to worry about everything all the time. Even when, like, we're doing leg locks, you have to worry about both legs, both feet. Well, I mean, even the pass could be coming. You have to be mindful of all this stuff, and it really opens up your whole game.
And that just comes back to what Neiman said one day. He said, you know what makes a good jiu-jitsu guy or a good grappler, right? It's just hours on the mat, man. It's hours on the mat. Because the only place you really learn is on the mat. Because, and Master Marcio always said that the mat is the lab. You always have some formula for doing something, but every time you do it the first time, maybe there's too much of one thing, a little less of another thing, and it, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out, sometimes it blows up in your face. But that doesn't mean you have to stop doing it. You just have to adjust and start to see where's the perfect balance of everything. And then, you know, that's how you get better. And then the other thing too is when you come to train, if you're not tapping, man, you're not training. You need, because when you start to do these things that you've never done before, you might get caught in something. Even if you're a higher belt and you're going with a lower belt, it doesn't matter, man. It happens. Who cares? You know, because when I first started, there was no way anybody was tapping a black belt. I don't care who you were. It wasn't, or a higher belt. So if you were a white belt, there's no way you're tapping a blue belt. If you were a blue belt, there's, you know. So, but nowadays it's not like that. It's not like that anymore. You'll see blue belts tapping black belts. You'll see kids, you know. But why?
There are some,
because some kids have been training since 5.
Yeah, they're good.
You know, they've been training since 5 years old, and then, you know, and this is what I love about jiu-jitsu is the whole belt system, because they will not give a black belt to a kid.
They won't even give a blue belt until they're what, over 16?
Yeah, so. And you can't get a black belt until you're 18.
Quality control.
Well, which is great. I think that's great.
Yeah.
But when you see that kid with a green belt, you're in trouble, man. You know, because the green belt is the black belt for kids, essentially, right? So you know, and you know, I have my son training. If this was around when I was a kid, I would have trained. You know,
I wish it was around when I was a kid. I mean, I was in a rural upstate, you know, New York town. There was no way. I mean, it was so far gone. But I do, you know, I remember my father got me for Christmas it was a Gracie, it was Hoist Gracie and one of the other Gracies, one I hadn't heard before. But it was a little book, and it had all these great self-defense techniques against like knives and pipes and kind of different blocks and everything. I had hip toss and stuff.
Right.
I loved that book so much, and surprisingly, I remember I was doing it for like, you know, I was all about it. I had a friend, we did it for like a couple days. He got bored of it, and so obviously I couldn't train anymore. But like, I would just go through those and stare at those things and try to get, like, going over the hip toss and like, no, this doesn't feel right. And then I was like, oh, if I lock your hip to my hip and I just stand up, you're weightless basically.
Yep.
And
see all those things, man, and all those things. It's just like it's like, you know, your mind gets blown, man. And even like when Master Marcio, when he would, the best for me, the best times of learning jiu-jitsu was not learning a technique, was listening to Master Marcio's stories. you know, or what he had to say. Like those were like you're just sitting there literally watching.
What's your favorite Master Marcio story? If you can share it. Your most favorite and shareable story.
I mean, there's so many, man, that he's told. See, the thing with him though is he never really got into any fights.
He seems such like a nice guy.
Yeah,
he's just so chill. And...
He's just, you know, he's always so happy and chill, and like, you know.
Like he'll stop a class and say, "My brother,
yeah,
hello."
It's just so funny because he would have friends that would try and get him to get into fights. You know, and he's like, no, I'm not gonna fight for you or whatever. I'm not gonna fight that guy.
I want to fight, like, especially like I can't imagine him when he's younger. Like he is like a long, strong, heavy. I would never want to fight him ever.
When he first came, he was young. His body was still good, and I mean, like, just the one place I would never ever want to be is in his guard. Whether it be open or closed, you know.
Guard or mount? What do you think?
Well, it doesn't matter because if you're in his guard, he's going to mount you. It didn't really matter. So, and you know, but I think, I mean, I got my black belt in 8.5 years, but that's the only reason is because the 2 last years I was training every day, twice a day. Because I would come to the morning class and then I'd come to the evening class.
How did you do that? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no. I mean, so
how did your body? Like,
the thing was the following. It was more psychological than physical, because whatever happens in your personal life obviously affects your jiu-jitsu. Meaning, if you have a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, and they're like, I don't want you to go, you're not, you know, it just becomes a battle. But in my life at that time, I actually got separated. So I was married and then I got separated. So now I'm living out on my own. So in order to psychologically not be stuck in a room with 4 walls and thinking about everything, I'm going to go focused on training. It was 100%, because when you train, and you know this, when you train, you can't think about anything else.
Yeah, no.
You're thinking about, oh, his arm is here, this is here, I got to move here. You know, you're not thinking about, oh, the bills that I got to pay. You know, that's not going through your mind. You know, or she said this to me. You know, nuh-uh. Yeah. Someone's trying to kill you at that point. You're not thinking about anything else. So the other part of that is on Saturdays and Sundays, I would help Master Marcio with his privates. And, you know, I'd be here from like 8 in the morning till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. So literally jiu-jitsu was my life.
Every day?
It was every day. Now you ask about the physical part of it.
How did you not deteriorate?
Well, the thing is that as you get higher into the ranks, you actually move less. And it's more of a I know how to conserve my energy to be able to roll. For example, today, I don't know how many rolls I did. I easily did like 12, 13 rolls.
I think with everybody.
That's what I try to do. When I'm here, I always try to roll with everybody. Because like I always say, I don't care if they're a white belt or whatever. Everyone's different and reacts differently. So I always try to roll with everybody and sort of just let them see which way they will go and what they will do in a certain position, so that if I ever roll with somebody, like, I'm not surprised. Like, oh, I've seen that before. I know what to do, right? So
you're not using a lot of strength. I mean,
I am using no strength whatsoever.
I know when I like rolling with black belts really at this point, because I'm the same way. I won't really use a lot of strength, and I like that because then I can actually roll a lot more. I learn a lot more. We have a lot more fun.
Yeah.
It's, you know, when you get like the lower belts, you know, and they're still like, they're heavy and they're powering on you. If they pass me and they're smashing me, then I kind of have to use a lot of strength.
Exactly.
And I'm still, you know, you're at a point where, like, if people are smashing you, you still know.
I know, man. Like, look,
I'm still learning a lot.
I know when I roll with a white belt or a blue belt, dude, they're going to come 110% at me. And all I do is I just sit there and frame and weather. It's like when you're riding a bull, you just sit there and you just weather it until they get tired, and then, you know. But you know, that's you know, I just I can, like I said, I can conserve my energy. I know when to use it and when not to use it. I know how to breathe better, you know, when I'm rolling. And if I have big, heavy guys on, quote unquote, on top of me, I don't ever feel their weight because of the frames that I use. So I can go 20 straight and not really be tired.
Yeah,
at all.
I was rolling with the, oh gosh, I forgot his name. He was a bigger purple belt, and we were going. And,
Derek.
And like he got on top of me, and
It's like 280, man.
But like he was also being nice to me. He could have been way worse,
Yeah.
but like it was still just like unbearable. And it took every ounce of like everything I had just to get out. I finally got it. He was like, "Oh, really nice, dude." And I was like, "I cannot get on bottom. I have to be on top." But like, I mean, I couldn't even move it. But
And that's the thing. And I love to play from bottom. I love, like I was talking earlier today with you and the other guy. I love to play from bottom. But that's just your style of game. Everyone starts to find their game usually towards the end of purple belt. You know, if you want to be a guard passer, or you want to play guard, or you like to do leg locks, whatever. It took me to brown belt to learn that I wanted to do leg locks, right? Because it was something that I had to, when I do something, I'm 100% in. So when I said, okay, I have to learn leg locks, I was 100% in. It wasn't like a half-ass thing, like, oh, I know enough.
But you also have like
know enough.
You have the top game, like you know all the the arm bars, the triangles.
Oh no, yeah.
know you have all the stuff too, and the leg locks. I guess for, at brown belt, you're still they were new to you, so you're like, I don't know this stuff, so I got to learn it. And as I'm learning it, I guess in my own opinion, the legs are, I'm not honestly I would say they're at least 50% of the entire game, because it's a whole different world. It's an entire different world of like escapes, and you go to counter and then you put your foot up here, but then if I could give you two leg locks, if I put my foot here, if I'm going for something, it's a different world.
If you are good at playing, let's say 50-50 guard, and you're a blue belt, and I'm a black belt, and I never played 50-50 guard, and we get into 50-50, who's going to win?
The blue belt.
Exactly. When I started really teaching in the mornings, and really, because for the first few years I had my own curriculum. It was different than the rest of the schools, obviously, because the rest of the school really didn't show footlocks. But it's funny because I'm showing you everything plus footlocks, drills for footlocks, drills to escape footlocks, and now I'm showing this for about a year and a half. Brown belt walks through the door, rolls with one of the white belts, footlocks him in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Brown belt gets upset, of course.
That's what happened to me when I came
Start
back.
rolling again. I see these two guys start rolling again. White belt gets him with another footlock. Brown belt gets upset. And I go, look, two things can happen. You can either get mad and never roll with him again, but that doesn't matter because everybody here is training footlocks, or you can just start to learn them, And I guess it's easier to learn leg locks when you are a higher belt, because a lot of the concepts up there, attacking the legs is like attacking the arm, It's similar. It's a bigger body part. That's why I always say, nope, you have to use the legs to attack the legs. It's not the hands. Yes. And I set everything up. I will give you my arms. I will give you my upper body. But as I'm giving you my upper body, my legs are getting in place so that when I rip off my upper body from you, I'm already in a position where you have half a second to respond.
Yeah, you go to frame, the wedges come in, and then...
It's different. But and that's the game that I love. And it's funny because guys forget that I do know how to choke, that I do know how to wrist lock, that, the one thing being a student of Master Marcio's, and maybe more myself, because back in the day he used to teach more. I mean, obviously now with, his age, his injuries, and, plus he's got more schools and whatnot, it's hard for him to really teach every class. But back in the day when he taught, man, he told me you have to pretend that you're an electric fence so that when somebody touches you, they don't want to touch you. And it was wrist locks, man.
Well, that's what Master Marcio. I mean, when
I try to open his guard, it was wrist lock.
It's the same thing now.
If you grabbed his collar, you were getting wrist lock. I don't care if you were grabbing a bow and arrow. One of my favorite wrist locks, by the way, that I learned from him, I let someone get me into a bow and arrow, and then I wrist locked them.
I haven't experienced that one yet. I'll have to try it next time.
So, yeah. So, that's one of my favorite ones, because because I really don't let too many people get me into a bow and arrow position. You know why? Because I'm already feeding my legs into getting a leg lock. So people let go of the grip to protect their legs.
And that's why when I roll with you, I don't roll like I roll with you exclusively like in a very specific way. Like I see you are plotting stuff. You know, you put your arms up, which is like a sin in jiu-jitsu, and I'm just like, I know what I want to do, but like I know this knee's gonna come in and start wedging, and so at least when I roll with you, I'm always looking at the legs. I almost don't even care about the arms.
Yes.
So I know, like, all right, I'm gonna try to get this Kimura, but this knee's gonna come up and do so, like, and I'm always mindful of that stuff. And I wonder what like people are thinking, where they're like, why doesn't he just like go for a choke or go for this arm? He's giving it to him, but I'm looking like, no, because
it's not there really.
Yeah.
You know, it's
even if I know, and I've like today I had an arm bar, but like we were fighting, and you know exactly what you know what I need to finish. And in this case, I know too. I'm looking at him like, all right, I have the leg, I have the arm, I even have the other leg over your head. But now I need the other arm to break the grip to start to finish. And I know once I let go of that leg, stuff is gonna move, and like I'm gonna lose it. And it's just it's really a fun game. I do enjoy the role.
But see, that's the great thing about jiu-jitsu, man. It's never ending. It's never ending. You know, it's because there's just so many things that can happen that you can do, and you know, unless you're rolling with a white belt, never two rolls are the same. Like if I want to get what I want to get on a white belt, I always get the same thing, but that gets boring. And I think the best way to learn, and I like to do this a lot. There are days I'll come in and I won't have mercy on anybody. I will just be like, okay, I'm gonna submit you as many times as I feel like it.
Yep.
But then there's other days I come in and I say, okay, I know, because I watch everyone roll in class, I know what this guy's favorite submission is. I know what that guy's favorite submission is. I will let him get me in that favorite submission and get out. And really not just get out and submit. And then there'll be times like what open mat today, for example. I will, let's say if I finish with a straight ankle, I won't use the straight ankle again the rest of the time, even if I'm in that position. If I finish with a knee bar, I won't use a knee bar again. Even though I'm in that position, I'll give it up and go and move to something else. So that you always, want to see what's next. You can't be a one-trick pony here. Once guys start to figure out what you're doing and how to stop it, that's it. So you always want to, I think that's how I evolved, at least in jiu-jitsu and getting better and staying calm, because like I said, everyone has their favorite position, and not every single one it's the same. There used to be guys that used to come here that loved the darts, man. And then when they would get a darts on somebody, that was it. It was over.
Kevin.
Yep. So like he would, if he got you in a darts, that was it. You were done. Yep. I don't care. How do you think I learned to get out of a darts? Because I let him get me into it, and I figured my way out of it. Right? So now when somebody else tries to come to darts me, and I know that they're not even half as good as Kevin, it's like, dude, you're never going to finish me, because if I can stop it on this guy, I could definitely stop it on you.
It's so funny. I was talking to my friend from upstate. He goes around, he competes, he knows a lot. And it's funny that like, we talk about jiu-jitsu growing so much. It's still a very small community where.
Look, man, let me tell you something.
Sure.
And you know this because you've been training. Now you're a purple belt, so you've been training at least 7 years, dude.
2013 is when early 2013.
So look, there's a little screw loose upstairs with all of us that train. Because I mean that, I don't mean that we're crazy. I just mean that there's something in all of us that says, okay, we're gonna wake up at some ridiculous hour of the morning. We're gonna go. We're not gonna eat any breakfast. We're just gonna go, and we're gonna try and kill or get killed. And we all know that over the jiu-jitsu career and the jiu-jitsu experience, if you haven't injured yourself, you really haven't done jiu-jitsu. So there's always injuries. And then and if you haven't thought about quitting, you're not a real jiu-jitsu guy, because there's there at every belt there's always like a plateau. There's like you know maybe not so much at white and blue belt because you're just learning so much stuff, but especially when you get to purple belt, you're like, man, like I just don't feel like I'm getting better. Or like in your case, you came back and all of a sudden everyone's footlocking you and you're like, what is going on here? So and that happened to me too. I was like, you know what, I think, you know.
You had the same.
Oh, absolutely.
You thought about quitting at brown
absolutely.
belt?
Not at brown belt, at purple belt. Yeah, I was purple belt. You know, and I was like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, you know, whatever. But, so then you're not. So, injuries is a part of it. Wanting to quit is a part of it. Doubting yourself is a part of it. All these things are a part of it. Why? Because that's what then takes and forms you to be this person who's not scared of any situation, because you've been there, you fought through it, and you keep moving on. You keep moving forward. So physically it's like you feel, I can't do this move or whatever. But it's really mental, man. It's more mental than physical. Because if you can reach that point where you're like, I'm gonna quit today, and like you say, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I just went. I instinctively just went, and
then that, man, that is really the biggest battle, you know. So it's the way I look at higher belts, especially every other, like when you see someone at black belt, the respect that's there, it's because those guys have been through all that stuff. I know that those guys have had those doubts in their head, have been through all the injuries, and still come back. Some guys have worse injuries than others.
I mean, life happens too.
You know?
Sometimes
well,
you
that's
get
the other
a
thing.
job or something like
you get a job, you have to move. The wife don't like the fact that you're coming with what looks like hickeys are really just choke marks. You know, it's just those things, man, that, you know, and all those things, if you add all those things up, it's so easy to just quit. Forget it, I'm out of here.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, the screw loose, that you keep going.
But you keep going, you keep showing up. But that's what makes you, that's what forms you into being, you know, who, not just who you are as a person, but, you know, as a jiu-jitsu player. That's what really forms you. And that's why whenever you see a black belt, man, you'd be like, shit, this guy's been through everything. He's pretty much seen everything. Yeah. But you can't get that through white belt and blue belts' heads. It's like, dude, that guy, he's a black belt for a reason. Yeah. And I remember one time I was training with somebody, and they were 5-6 months in, but you know, you got that ex-athlete, that famous, I used to play this, or I used to wrestle, and I'm, you know, because I'm 45 now, and you know, maybe they're 20 something, and they're big and strong and muscular and pretty and all that crap, and they come in and then they get frustrated because they're not beating you, right? And that happened to me with this one kid, and I'm like, dude, you've been training for like 5-6 months, right? I've been training for 10 years. If you were to come off the street and just beat me, I'm gonna take off my belt, walk over to the trash can and throw it away, because everything that I put into that belt obviously means absolutely nothing. So whenever I see that black belt, because sometimes it's not even a brown belt, man, because sometimes brown belts don't even make it over that hump, you know? Wow. Yeah, I mean, most brown belts do become a black belt, but I've seen some brown belts, they never become, they're like, yeah, I stayed a brown, you know?
I'm sure there's other stuff going on, like the idea that you're right one step away from having a target on your back, like you would say.
Yeah, and I, you know, and you know, you always feel like you have a target on your back when you change belts, right? Like you're no longer that white belt, you're that blue belt. So if you're rolling with a white belt, you're like, dude, I gotta kill this guy. You know?
I can go all out because he can handle it. And it's like, and that's the thing, you never know where someone's at. Maybe you're coming in, you're a little tired, oh, maybe I want to work this, and some other guy comes in, he goes, oh, I'm ready to crush today. And it's like, you know, people are coming onto the mats with different kind of motives and intentions every day. The
one thing I learned as a black belt is the following. The first time I roll with you, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to smash you. I'm going to make it hurt so that you know that I'm a black belt. Next time we roll, then we'll start to play. I'm not going to play with you first, because if you're a new guy who comes in and then starts, oh, this jiu-jitsu is a bunch of bullshit. I went with the black belt and I handled it.
It wasn't even that bad.
Yeah. You know, I want you to be like,
You want him to suffer a little bit.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're choking, you hear that, you know, that little sound. Yeah.
Gagging, yeah.
So, or that, what I like to call the machine gun tap, which is ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. You know, because they don't have enough time to tap. They're like, ta-ta-ta-ta. Right?
Yeah.
So, and then I'll start to, you know, whatever, play or whatever. Because, like I said, man, you get that black belt, there's that target. Like, if I can beat him, I can beat anybody. And I'll give you one anecdote, because you asked me for anecdotes about that. So, this was here one morning. This is when I just got my black belt. It was a couple months in. And this blue belt comes in. He's already talking shit from day one. He's like, oh, I'm coming here because at the old school I used to train at.
I beat everyone up, right?
I beat the teacher. The teacher was a purple belt. I beat the teacher, and he wasn't. I'm like, whatever, man. Like, sure, whatever. So, you know, the regular way class works is, you know, we come in, we bow in, we warm up. I show you the technique, we drill the technique, and then we roll. Class is over. Mm-hmm. We get to the point of we're rolling. 7:30, class is over. And so this kid walks over to me and he says, George, I've got a question for you. I'm like, sure, whatever. I didn't get a chance to roll with you. I'm like, dude, class is over, you know. Like, so I'm like, all right, you know what? Fine, let's roll. So now everybody sits down on the bench, because before in there used to be the benches on the side, yes. and so like people were sitting on the benches. They're not leaving. So we start rolling. 5 minutes. 5 minutes on the clock. I tap him out once, I tap him out twice, I tap him out 3 times. But then I just felt his energy change. His grips got stronger, and all of a sudden he just sort of lowered his level, like, all right, here it comes. Like, here comes 100 miles an hour, he's gonna go crazy. Yeah. So I'm you know, playing from bottom like I like to play. And now he tries to throw a spinning knee bar on me, but really yank on my knee. Which is the wrong guy to do it to, because I know the leg lock game. Yeah. As soon as he started to do that, I knew exactly what he wanted to do, because in his mind,
no one knows this.
The thing is, in his mind, yes, the black belt tapped me out 4 or 5 times, whatever it is. But if I tap him out once, like, that's a big deal.
I'm the man.
Yeah, I'm the man. He can
belt
say I tapped out the black belt.
Yep.
So he tries to go for this spinning knee bar. He doesn't get it, obviously. So he's still on top, I'm on bottom. Mm-hmm. And now I start to sweep him, but I purposely bring his foot across my chest. He's still on top, I'm on bottom. Mm-hmm. And what I did is I rolled all his weight onto his ankle in an estima lock and popped his ankle. And he, you know, he couldn't walk off the mat. Mm-hmm. And there's security cameras in the dojo, and obviously I tell Master Marcio, because I don't want this guy to be like, hey, your black belt tried to hurt me, you know. Yeah. I was like, this is what happened. So he goes back and he looks at it and he sees it. He sees the whole thing, the way it played out, like I told him.
Basically called you out.
Yep.
In the worst way.
In the worst way. And Master Marcio looks at me, he's like, boy, he's lucky. If that was me or my master, I would have heel hooked him and made sure he never walked again.
Yeah, and it's funny how it's like the toe hold is like the mercy of like the leg locks.
You know,
like.
So it's one of those things. So when new guys now come in, and you've heard me say this, and I love to joke, you know, when guys are rolling with me, and I always say, oh, I have no feelings in my legs. There's no veins running through you can't choke me. You know, I love doing that stuff. It's just because I've already been in those positions. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's true that there's that saying or whatever, like, you know, your master has tapped to that position 1,000,000 times before you even ever tried it. So I know how to get out of it because I've been in it so many times. When you try to apply it to me, dude, it's like nothing. Like I know it's one little dip of the shoulder, or even just turning my thumb the wrong way, or even inverting my knee and my heel. Like I will give you my heel so you see it, but what you don't understand is that I'm actually inverting my knee so you can't finish it.
Let me ask you this. So, and obviously, yes,
Yeah.
you said that stuff, and that actually has affected me because now I'm like, I might not go for like a toe hold on you because I know maybe that's not going to work on you. Let me I struggle with this a little bit. Like if I'm rolling with a higher belt, and let's say like I might actually have something where like they're working for a defense or something. Part of me says, well, this is the dilemma. Do I go for it and risk maybe injuring my teacher or the guy, this person? Do I risk injuring someone who like is showing me stuff just so I can say, oh, I got the tap? Or do for me, what I'll do is I'll only go like as hard as like a certain degree, and then I'll be like, I'm not going past this because then something could pop, something could happen. I'd rather them reverse it and get me in something.
So here's my philosophy. Here's my philosophy on that. And I've actually been asked this question by somebody else, and not really asked by somebody else, but I've seen it happen where I see the lower belt have the upper hand on the higher belt, but not follow through. Okay, and I pulled him aside and I said, listen, because he felt that it's disrespectful, and I was in the same position at one point in my jiu-jitsu career, like disrespectful to tap out the higher belt, right?
Maybe not. Well, I don't want to say disrespectful. Like let's say if I got you in a toe hold or something, and I was like, oh, I know if I could crank, like if I could do this, oh, like I might have this if I just But I go, you know what,
You feel like you have to let go.
I don't want it. Like I hold back. I do hold back.
Yeah.
I'll be.
So
here's my
thing on that.
Sure.
My thing on that is if you have somebody who is obviously a higher belt than you and understands and knows these different positions and knows, then for me you have to finish. You have to finish for two reasons. Because it's more of a disrespect in my eyes for you not to finish that higher belt, because you're letting him believe he's better than he actually is. Meaning, if I know that I can, if you get me in a toe hold and I don't want to tap because my ego's in the way, I have to be better than I have to know when I'm beat. And if I injure myself in that, it's my fault, not your fault.
But I know if that were me, I would feel just so awful. Like if I injured, like theoretically, if I injured you in a toe hold, I would feel so bad. Like it would be awful. I wonder.
So you, I mean, the thing is that a higher belt in that situation should know that they're beat. They should know that they're beat, whether it be a toe hold, an arm bar, or whatever it is. I don't care what it is. And they should know that they're beat, and they should tap. And if they don't, you keep going. You keep going. And I tell this to the other guy, don't make it seem like it's disrespectful or embarrassing or being an asshole or a dick to that other person. Say, keep going. Do it slow. You don't have to yank on, I always tell you guys, don't ever yank on anything.
That's what I feel like.
That's one thing, yanking on something, right?
So then for my...
But if I keep going slow, if I have, like you say, like for example, a toe hold, if I keep going and I keep going, but I'm going slow, there comes a point where the other guy is going to be like, oh shit, like I can't do this anymore. But if I grab it and just yank on it, that's a little bit different. So that's more like this is like a competition type thing than like we're like rolling.
So so I mean, what are your thoughts on kind of my philosophy of like, if let's say, because I think this is I guess where the dilemma comes together, the intersection is where, if let's say like I have a position, I have you in a toe hold, I have it, I put a little pressure on, I could finish, but because I don't finish, maybe then like it'll give you time to reverse it, because you know what to do and everything. So then you look back at it and it's like, should I have finished the hold and went all out in the toe hold and maybe risk injuring your foot, or like, is it something like, do I have to force it, like force you to tap, or would you know what I mean? Like, or would you be like, oh, I'm in a bad position, he could finish, I'll tap, or like, he's not finishing, let me get, like, you see what I mean? It's kind of that dilemma. What are your thoughts on that?
So look, if you have something, I don't care what it is.
You say go for it.
Because if you have something and you have the right technique, they're going to have to tap. Okay. Now, if they don't tap and they get injured, it's their fault. I don't see it as it's my fault. And I've been in that situation before. Sure. I've been in that situation before where I'm looking at the guy and I'm pulling on it and I'm like, are you sure you don't want to tap? And they look at me and sometimes there is always that guy who doesn't want to tap, and I have a million examples of that, and I'm looking at them, and I have it, and I know I have it, and it's like, dude, if I do this any harder, like something's gonna break, and they.
Okay. Yeah, I always struggle with that because like you don't.
And you can't feel bad. I look at them and be like, you should have tapped.
I guess that's gonna be tough for me to kind of change. I have that philosophy, like I don't.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you. You know
when
when this will change for you? At brown belt, because brown belt is the asshole belt. At brown belt, you have to be an asshole.
Ugh.
You have to be there, and you can talk to any guys. There's this giant leap in between purple and brown, because brown now you're literally one step away from black.
Yeah, could you elaborate on that a little more? Like why is it the asshole belt?
So look,
really?
so white belt is the survival belt. Like you're just like, all right, I know I'm gonna get my ass kicked, but whatever. I'm here. So that's the white belt. The white belt guy is really the guy who's just trying to survive. When you get to blue belt is, all right, it's not so much about survival because you're past that. And now it's like, all right, it goes from survival and defending to now I gotta find one submission. And then when you go from that blue belt to purple belt, once you get into purple belt, and for me, I think when you get your purple belt, you should live at purple belt for a while. Like I don't think it should be there 3-4 years. I think you should be there like 5-6 years.
I agree.
Because at purple belt comes the mental part of wanting to quit. Because when you get to purple belt, you've learned so many techniques, you reach this plateau and you want to quit, right? And that happens to all of us. And then after that point, when you pass that, then it becomes finding your game. Because you have to find, at purple belt, you have to find yourself at that point before you become a brown belt. So once you become that purple belt, then you find your game and you know, okay, this is my game, whether it be passing guard or playing guard and whatever. Once you're done being a purple belt and you come to brown belt, you've learned so many techniques, right? 1,000,000 trillion techniques that you need to start to literally, and this is what I start to weed out all the techniques that really don't work, because from all those hours of rolling, you know what works and you know what doesn't work. So why would you do the shit that doesn't work? And when I mean doesn't work, I mean if it only works on white belts and blue belts but not on purple belts, forget it. Why even do it? Why even keep using it? You know? So when you get to that brown belt point and you start to weed everything out, now you're only using the techniques you know that work. And now you have to make sure that when you apply that to anybody, that it always works and that it works 100%, so it makes you seem like an asshole, because you're not giving anybody any room to sort of beat you. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I see that.
So because you know that next step is that black belt, and that when you get that black belt, now you got the huge target on your back. So you need to make sure that your game is on point. And that's what happens at brown belt. And you need to, it's almost like I don't want to say this, but it's kind of true. It's almost like you need to prove to your master or to whomever that I'm worthy of being a black belt. And how else of being worthy than being a black belt than shitting on all the other belts? No matter who they are. I don't care if it's their first day, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting, is it that, when you're a brown belt, I mean, when I look at brown belts, they're in that same, to me, they're basically, I treat them the same way as black belts, basically, where like these guys are very experienced, they're like on the verge
But the difference when you roll with a black belt, it's easier. It's easier in the sense that the black belt's giving you stuff to let you play your game, you know? Brown belt's not going to do that.
I guess,
that's why the brown belt is the asshole belt. Because the brown belt is not going to give you...
He
won't let you give you a leg up.
Yeah, they're merciless.
No, it's not. I'm not going to give you my back. No, that's not going to happen. But the black belt will give you their back, because the black belt needs to show you that being calm and blah, 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 and getting out.
Right.
You know, how many times do I let you guys get my back, and then 2 seconds later I have your leg?
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole point, though. Like, wow, like, how did he do? Like, I need to keep focusing and learning how to do that, how the body positioning and all that stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense because you're a brown belt. The next step is that, so you have to really be serious. You have to really take it seriously, and that means weeding the weaknesses out. tightening up all the other,
Because you don't want to be that black belt that ends up on Facebook like a blue belt after the black belt. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I can't. Yeah. Really one of these.
And the only way to do that, man, is just to train. There's no secret pill. There's no YouTube video. There's no Danaher video or Gordon Bryan video. There's none of that, man. Is going to help. You just got to show up. The days you don't want to go are the days you should go. You know?
And you're so, you know, it's so funny you mentioned that, because just in this week alone, I probably didn't want to come. Actually, probably after the first day, I didn't want to come the rest of the week because I was very sore. I was tired.
Yeah.
And it's so weird. Like I come in and then I actually roll that. Like I have more energy. And honestly, obviously, you got to take that with a grain of salt, because maybe other guys are coming in, they're also super tired, and maybe, you know, it's all in perspective. Like I might have like just more energy than they do that on that specific day, but you know, you're so right. You just got to show up, mat time. You get tapped, you get taps. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing.
Doesn't matter, man.
You gotta
like I said,
enjoy the journey.
This is the lab, man. It's so funny. Like, some guy today asked me, he's like, George, when was the last time you tapped? And I was thinking, I think like last week. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, man, like last week or something.
And it's like, you know, it's so important. Like, I mean, if you get tapped out, like I know some guys might get like super excited. Like I'm at that point too. I don't care. Like if I tap out a black belt, I know that if I tap out a black belt, I know it's actually because they made a mistake. Like I was doing stuff and they might have made a mistake, and you know. That's
the other thing too. So when I got to brown belt, I stopped seeing all the other belts because I can feel it. So like the great example is when you do no-gi, because half the time you have no idea what these guys' belts are if they just show up in no-gi and then it's some crazy like no-gi rash guard where it really doesn't say what belt they are, right?
Colors.
Yeah, just whatever, or some panda on there.
Yeah.
You know. So, but I can feel it immediately. I can feel what somebody's level of jiu-jitsu is just by rolling, because as a black belt, you know, man, like if I get certain grips on you and you really don't know how to sort of have an answer to that, I'm like, whatever. So, you know, I stopped looking at the belts. Like, I don't care if the kid's a white belt. Well, I take it easier on him, maybe a little bit, but you know, if I roll with a brown belt or a black belt or whomever, like, it doesn't matter. And if you can tell, like, my rolls really don't change.
No,
I roll with a white belt, and like, I don't know if you saw today when I'm rolling with a black belt, it looks like the same roll. And it
might be a little faster. It might be a little.
But it's probably fun. It was probably more fun to watch the black belt roll today. But I'm just saying, like, I didn't change anything. The same mistakes that this white belt is making, so is this black belt making, because of the leg game that this black belt never did.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. Like, I would like to get. I don't want to be like, God willing, I continue in this and I have the fortune to do it. If I get to black belt, I don't want to be someone who missed out on that whole leg game. Like, in fact, it's funny. I always say, like, I wish I started like some of the white belts at 6 a.m. Like, they're so lucky. They don't even understand. They're so lucky that they are getting the full game. They're getting the top and the leg game. Yep. They're going to be so much better because they already are so much better because of it.
I didn't start until brown belt. Till this guy, and it was just because this kid came in as a blue belt to the school. You know, I'm one of those people, like, who just believes that everything happens for a reason. I'm not a very religious person, so I just believe that certain things happen for a reason, and like, you meet someone in your life, they might not even be there for too long or whatever, but I think every, you know, connection, whatever you have with, it's for something. Maybe not something like huge, but at least some little thing that has some sort of effect on you in some way, whether it be positive or negative. And these few months that I had with this kid, man, changed my entire jiu-jitsu game. Yeah.
And look what and as a result, you know? it's a whole now.
And I always, and I try to text him and I try to message him and I keep telling him, like, dude, thank you. You know, like, I'll see him if he wins, like, whatever, I'll just be like, thank you, man. Like, thank you. You know, like, I always show respect to everyone I've ever trained with or ever rolled with, whether they still be at this academy or not, because shit happens. I always say, like, hey, man, like, you were a big influence in my career, you know, my jiu-jitsu career, because of this, that, and the other. maybe they didn't even show me a move, maybe just talking to me, you know, like when, you know, you feel like quitting, there's always that one person that's like, yo, why would you quit? You've made it this far, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
So having this guy just come and just affect my life that way for just, and it was only like a couple of months, it wasn't for a very long period. And just everything just changed.
And look what's happened as a result of that. Now you're influencing an entire generation.
Which you know, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah, I mean now all the 6 a.m. guys. I mean they're all.
It's just so funny because it's like it's almost like a cult thing. Because because like you know you come you know, I really didn't think about it too much in the beginning, but once. Most of these guys started training me for like a year. They would come to me on Monday and be like, hey man, I came to the Saturday Open mat. I just footlocked everybody. Some people I didn't even get the footlock on because I grabbed their feet and they're like, oh, you're one of those 6 a.m. guys. Oh, you're one of those 6 a.m. guys.
Yep, that's what they say.
You know? So I think it's funny that you know, that it's like this whole like, you know, they think all we do is leg locks. I think that's great. I think that adds to this whole like, you know,
mysticism about
it. Because you know that Danaher and those guys, they're not just doing leg locks over at Henzo's. I've been there. I've trained with these dude. He's showing and you can really see it in his whole like 6-system DVD thing where he's got like the back system, the triangle system, the headlock system, the Kimura system.
He has a headlock system?
Yes, he does have a headlock system. Don't worry, I have all those things. The great thing too is that what guys know is that, and you know, that I have all these things. The thing with Danaher, I believe you have to be a higher ranking belt to understand those DVDs. Because he's teaching you concepts through moves. He's not teaching you moves. There's a big difference. He's not saying, put your leg here and put your leg there and put your arm here and this is how. No. He's saying, this is where you want to be. This is this part of this leg lock system. This is this part of the leg lock system. And the funny thing is that the old school of teaching was, they show you the poison, they don't show you the antidote. Like you had to figure that out on your own. Danaher's like, why? I'm gonna show you every antidote so that your poison is that much better.
Yeah, that's
right.
He's taken, I think, jiu-jitsu, I think probably one of the, more than anyone else, he's made it like systematic, like mechanical almost, to the point where it's just like point A, point B, if they do that, like it's almost like if you could think about it like as like a supercomputer, like you're in this position, here's all the options, here's all the escapes, here's the subs, and then you know the position changes. Oh, now we're here. Now these are the options.
You take he takes the like this is one thing that like everyone's learned how to. It's one of the first submissions you learn how to do is the arm lock from guard. When I saw his arm lock, the way he uses it from the guard position is the way I've never seen it before and explained before. And basically, before you even get the arm lock on, you've nullified every defense there is to get the arm lock. So, you know, things like that, I'm just like, my mind gets blown away. Now, on the other hand, with Danaher, dude, you have to take some sort of like super energy drink to stay awake. Because when you watch these things, if you're just like, you know, if I'm tired,
be alert.
You have to be very alert. If I know I need to go to sleep and I can't, I will literally turn on one of his videos and in the first 30 seconds I will be asleep. Because just because he's such an academic that the words that he uses are like these big words that you usually don't associate with jiu-jitsu guys, you know, or like meathead guys, you know what I mean? Like,
they say
like with like fighters and whatever.
They say he's like the Hannibal Lecter of jiu-jitsu.
So, you know, and you know, and then he just got that monotone voice. It's like, you know, and he's just like, all right, I'm about to fall up. So, but my point is that the only way to really understand him, because he's the one who really teaches you concepts, right? And I'll just give you a real quick example. So now he's doing stuff in the gi.
Oh, so so his 6 series already are all no gi?
Those are all no gi.
Oh god! Now, I think he's doing like gi chokes and
he's
stuff,
doing
like
what he's doing is he's doing sort of like the basic concepts of the gi or whatever. I don't know.
That's gonna be good.
So, no, he's got his retirement all set. It's like $200 every series that comes out, man.
God, that's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. But anyway, so he was talking about, for example, the last one he was doing, he was talking about how to escape side control. And now he's just talking about the concept. He says the more perpendicular you are, the harder it is to escape side control. So when the guy on top is more perpendicular to you, it's very hard to sweep him, just because of the way you are physically. If you can get more parallel with your partner when you're on bottom, now it becomes easier to sweep him, just because of the dynamics of you being on bottom, and now when you're parallel, it's easy to take one guy one side or the other. So if you understand that concept, I don't have to show you where to put your arm or your leg or your foot. You're going to figure it out on your own. You're going to say, how am I going to get parallel with my partner when he's perpendicular, when your partner's on top? Because we're talking about top half guard too. How am I going to get to this position? Oh, I know. If I'm caught on bottom half guard, I need to win the underhook, push him forward. Now we're parallel. Now if I just turn to the side, I just swept him. So that's what he's trying to explain, the concept. But he shows you with moves, meaning if you really want to be effective, this is where you should put your hand. You want to win this battle first, you want to win this battle second, and this battle third. And look, now you're in the parallel position to really sweep somebody over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all about learning. So if I know guys here who have the Danaher DVDs, and they're like, George, what is he talking about? I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. I'll show you later. Mm-hmm. You know?
Oh, wow. See, now, and this is actually a good segue to the next topic, because, so you'll say, like, you're in half guard. The standard is you want that underhook from bottom half guard, so you can come up to the top. And from what I'm learning from you a lot is that there's all the basic stuff, even like, the two that come to mind are, the bottom half guard, getting these underhooks, and the standard back position. Everything that I've learned, that I've kind of like drilled into me, that now everything is different now. It's like, oh no, you don't fall to the to this upper arm side that covers the neck. You fall to the other side.
Yep.
It's no, you don't get the underhook because you give them the underhook, and now you can start attacking legs and stuff. And
there's the thing. The thing is that the old school traditional way of showing you things was because it only attacked from the belt up. It didn't attack from the belt down. Mm-hmm. So, and what the Brazilians called eskrima is that underhook. Mm-hmm. It's like eskrima is really comes from when they're sword fighting, and when you're sword fighting, you want to, poke your opponent, sort of kill them. So that they call that an eskrima. So when you're on bottom half, and you always hear this, if you win the underhook, you win the position. But that's only if you're attacking the top. And now I throw into you the leg attacks. I'll let you win.
Underhook.
I'll give you the underhook. Why? Because I'm going to back step into the cross ashi. Mm-hmm. So that's where this whole thing of attacking the 100% of the body comes in.
It's almost like, and the way I've been describing it to people, it's like there's standard jiu-jitsu and there's jiu-jitsu 2.0, which is jiu-jitsu designed to combat jiu-jitsu people.
Yeah, exactly. the old school traditional.
Yeah, I guess that's you would describe that as accurate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's like, for me, it's like not only do I have to like basically learn this entire leg game, which is a whole different game in and of itself, but now I have to go also and learn the basics over again. Yeah. And it's like, it's really a daunting challenge. It's kind of like you're really fundamentally starting all over to compete in this new realm of jiu-jitsu with all these different moves and stuff.
Absolutely.
And obviously the stuff you know currently, the standard jiu-jitsu is good for current MMA applications. Yeah. And you can apply it still the same way, but if you want to fight these guys who now are so good at all this standard stuff, you have to get involved into this 2.0. Jiu-jitsu.
And that's the thing. And as a black belt and as a teacher and as being part of a school, man, like I said, we're coming back to this whole point of this is a business, man. It's a business, and people want this stuff. They want to learn this stuff, So you have to have it. So you can't just learn it just because, for you to be a better jiu-jitsu player. But if like down the line, because most guys, and you see it now, man, like before when I tried to look for a school, it was hard. Like, it was tough to find a jiu-jitsu school, and maybe there was one here, and then like 50 miles away was the next one. Now you got one in one, got several in one town. They're everywhere.
They're everywhere, but it's still a small community.
It is still a small community. There's a lot more, but here's where it comes down to lineage. When you are looking for a jiu-jitsu school, when you are looking to see who the head instructor is, you look at their lineage, meaning how direct is their jiu-jitsu to the origins of jiu-jitsu, right? So with me, I have this amazing luck, meaning that I was able to find Master Marcio when I did, because it goes Master Marcio, Holes Gracie, and then basically Elio and Carlos Gracie, who founded jiu-jitsu. My lineage is that tight.
It's a very tight lineage.
And one of the things is, and I guess this comes down to myself, is that I'm a very, very loyal person. And loyalty, obviously, in jiu-jitsu is one of the number one things, and sometimes it's very hard to find, because sometimes guys think that they're better than their master and whatever, and it becomes like a whole movie. But like I said before, I used to work in New York and live in Connecticut. So I used to live in Fairfield, Connecticut. So it was not a big deal for me to come to Norwalk, because it's literally on the way. So when all this personal stuff happened with me, where I got separated and whatnot, I actually moved to New York. So now actually coming to Norwalk, it's out of my way by like 30-40 minutes. So, but I knew what I had, and there is actually a school 5 minutes away from me where I live now. And when I first separated, there's a school 5 minutes away from me. And when I spoke to Master Marcio, he was like, hey, he's so and so, I know him, you can go train there. I was like, nah, man, I'm gonna keep training under you.
Yeah. And I was in the same boat. I mean, I have one literally right down the road from me, and they were, I went there. They had this seminar we talked about. George Martinez was there. It was fun. The guys were great and everything, but I was like, you know what? Just something in me was like, no, if I'm going to train jiu-jitsu, I have to go back to Norwalk. I have to. And honestly, it was the best decision. It really was. It was the right decision to make.
And then you look, and sometimes I ask myself these questions when guys leave the gym in a bad way. There's a lot of guys that have left the gym in a nice way, whatever. But like, dude, you got Marcio, who is a legend in his own right, And the funny thing is that everyone talks about me and my leg locks or whatever. Dude, he was the leg lock guy. Back in the day.
He was
the leg lock guy, man. He was the guy you had to be afraid of grabbing your legs, because you got to remember that Holes Gracie is really the father of modern jiu-jitsu, right? Because Holes Gracie trained every grappling sport. So he didn't just do the jiu-jitsu that his uncle was teaching him. He was doing sambo, he was doing judo, he was doing Greco-Roman wrestling. And he wasn't just doing these in Brazil, and he was traveling the world and doing all these things. So, and obviously, anyone who hears this, you can look it up. And Holes would come back and show all these things to his students, obviously, right? So I saw this, and this is in one of these, one of these BJJ articles or whatever. The very first toe hold in a match was by Marcio back in the day. First toe hold.
Was he teaching leg locks?
I don't know. That I don't know. I have
no. I mean, Master Marcio.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, not here. Not when I was here. I mean, he would teach like a straight ankle lock here and there, but really, not too much. He was more the traditional pass guard mount.
But he knew it.
And if you see because there's a lot of his matches on YouTube from back in the day. If you watch any of his matches, he's playing guard, and he's sweeping the guy, and he's getting into mount, and he's choking him from the mount. That's Jiu-Jitsu 101. That's what you want to do. if you were to look at an old manual of jiu-jitsu, and he did that, and he did that very well.
Yeah.
So, and the funny thing is that Master Marcio's so humble that all these things I found out, like I didn't find out through him. I found out.
He wouldn't tell you, I
no,
won this championship.
Never, never,
I know.
Never.
Yep.
He will never say, "Hey, Poha, I did this, I did that."
Yep.
Like, "Hey, look at all the belts hanging up over here."
He is very
Look
humble.
No,
Yes. He's just a great
you
guy.
find it out through other guys. You find it out through,
your own research.
Yeah, just through your own research and whatnot. You just find out all these things about him, and then it was funny because some of these old school videos, if you look him up, Marcio Macahau Stambolski on YouTube, there's like, it was funny because he actually told me, I said, "Hey, where did this video come from?" He's like, some guy who used to do jiu-jitsu back in Rio, who stopped doing jiu-jitsu or whatever, and was was a black belt or something. One of his old friends was cleaning out his attic, and he found all these videos, they're VHS videos, right? Yeah. And he found all these videos, and like some of them, like he gave them to certain people, and then some people started posting them.
Awesome.
and he's the guys that he's beating, and it's funny because these tournaments back in the day were different. They're not like tournaments today.
Yeah.
Like you can see Helio Gracie and Carlos Gracie sitting at this big desk, watching while these guys, and there's only one mat. There's not like 8 mats like today. There's only one mat, and these guys are going at it, and it's an old VHS recorder, you guys, like, you could tell like the tracking is off and whatnot, but and you can see it, and and the guys he's going against, they're like not no-name guys. I mean, we're talking like Pedro Sauer. He beat Pedro Sauer in like 3 minutes, and two of those minutes they were standing.
Wow.
So it's not like he's beaten. And then if you look also, a great thing of one of our students, David Kim, he actually traveled and interviewed a lot of Marcio's old friends and whatnot.
He's done like a Marcio documentary.
He's got like a
3-part series, right?
Yes, and if you look that up, man, you'll see. I mean, you got guys who are like, yeah, you got in his guard, you're scared. Like the one place you didn't want to be was in Marcio's guard.
Yeah.
And then there's his famous sweep, the Macahau sweep, which is a sweep from the guard. And it's funny because there's, I guess, like in Brazil, they really didn't start doing these really big tournaments or whatever until like the mid to late 90s. And there's several guys that used his sweep in these tournaments, but they were never referred to as him, and he would never say, "That's my sweep."
Yeah, he would, because he's that kind of guy. He's humble. Exactly,
he's that kind of guy, and he's humble like that. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm the first one to do that."
He would just be like, "Oh, great sweep,
So like it's for me, like there was no way, because of the type of person I am. First, I'm a loyal person, first of all, but to be where I am today is all thanks to him. And I tell guys, they're like, "Hey, did Marcio show you a leg lock?" I'm like, "No, he didn't show me a leg lock, or maybe he did later, but in the beginning, no, he didn't show me a leg lock, or he didn't show me how to do the leg. But he showed me the concepts. He showed me the way I need to be in order to be a good jiu-jitsu guy, so that I can learn it on my own."
And it also seems like he also didn't prohibit you from doing it. He never encouraged you not to do it, which I think was a thing that I think most guys experience.
Never. And then I think he's also starting to come around a little bit, because now he knows that it's like a big thing now. Yeah. And he knows, like,
well, he sees what you're doing, and he's like, "This is awesome."
And not only that, but he sees that other guys like it.
Yes.
They're attracted to it, and they show up, and it's like I said, it's hard to show up at 6 a.m. to train.
It is.
It's very hard. Most people don't. Most people like wake up exactly at the time they need to wake up to go to work. You know what I mean? But there's, and and I see it, because when I first started to teach. It's like 4 to 6 guys, 4 to 6 people, because there's women that come. So 4 to 6 people, on a consistent basis. And then that 4 to 6 turned to 6 to 8. And then that 6 to 8 turned to 8 to 10. And then that 8 to 10, and just kept growing, 8 to 12, 12 to 14. And then all of a sudden, there's 20 people in the class, and I'm just looking around like, holy shit. Like, and, it's just like, and that in this thing, it's people talking. It's people talking, say, hey, man, like, we're doing this leg lock thing.
Yeah,
or guys who are coming to the open mats on Saturday and Sunday, and they're getting foot locked like it's nobody's business. Like, where do you learn that? 6 a.m. Come to 6 a.m. class, So that's what I mean, like that whole cult thing came. And the funny thing is that guys come to learn a leg lock, and I'm not even showing a leg lock because it's Thursday's the day of leg locks, right? So
every now and then you'll be like, hey guys, this, and this. Also the heel hook here. All right, let's open mat. Or sorry.
Because I like to plant that seed.
Yeah.
Because you know why? Because throughout my jiu-jitsu career, I would see when Master Marcio would plant a seed. He wouldn't show you the move entirely, but he would be like, hey, you also have this here. And then be like, all right, let's go. Yeah. And he would leave you with that, like, sort of like a cliffhanger right there. And you're like, oh, I got to see that shit again. You know what I mean? So what happens there? You start to try and figure it out on your own. Because once you start to figure it out on your own, then everything else becomes so much easier. Like anything in life, man. When you can figure it out on your own and not have to need someone to hold your hand to do everything, then you're like, oh, wow, I can do this, no problem.
Yeah.
And then you know what? And it's funny because this actually translates to everything you do in your life. Because I'll be in a certain situation and I'll just be calm and I'll, whatever. And then I'll figure, okay, if I were in jiu-jitsu, I have to think 3-4 steps ahead. Okay, if I do this, this could happen. If I do this, this could happen. And so then when I come up and confront these things, I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, yes, let's do that. Hey, yeah, no, that's a good idea, George. And I take it all from this,
Awesome.
So like it's everything that happens in jiu-jitsu or happened in jiu-jitsu, I transfer that into like everyday life, especially with my kid, because I tell him, I say, who's the black belt? You are. It's like, so I could kill you, right? He's like, yeah, I know. I was like, all right, do what I tell you to do.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're about 2 hours, almost 15 minutes in. Let's start wrapping it up. I know you got something to do.
No,
I want to ask you. So, there's jiu-jitsu, there's standard jiu-jitsu, there's jiu-jitsu 2.0. What do you foresee maybe being jiu-jitsu 3.0, the answer to the guys who now are destroying and attacking the standard jiu-jitsu guys? What do you think jiu-jitsu 3.0 might be like?
Man, I don't see it changing too much because I think,
like, do you think we've maxed out like the everything we could possibly do with jiu-jitsu, or do you think
I don't think that'll ever happen.
Oh, okay.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
You don't know what like the next hot thing might be? I mean,
no, man. Look, I really don't know what the next hot thing would be, because
the next what's the next thing you think?
Because here, look, you got to look at it this way. Everything we're seeing now, it's nothing new.
This is true.
This is nothing new. It's just stuff that has been revisited, and not only revisited, but revisited through different people who have different views. And then, like I said, like you got these academics like John Danaher who obviously see this sport through an academic way of seeing things and can put it into systems and say, this, that, and the other. So, like, for example, like there was that whole thing with the Berimbolo, and everyone thought like that they were doing that in the 90s, right? It's just people took it and they just started using it more and using it for different things and using it to take the back and using it, to. I use the Berimbolo to attack the legs. It's like I'm not doing something crazy and new. I'm just taking something old and maybe using it in a different way. Maybe that's what we'll see in the future, aside from the 2.0, because now everyone's seeing, okay, the whole leg lock game, maybe I can use this move to get some weird leg lock, but it won't be a new leg lock.
Okay.
It'll be something that was in the past. And look, some guys have their own names for their own moves. It's just because they're famous for it. It wasn't because they were the first one to do it. Like I always tell you guys, the body can only move in so many ways, and there's so many things that you can actually do. right? We're not going to find a new joint in our body that's going to make us do some crazy new thing. It's so we're just revisiting things that were already there, but maybe just people stopped doing it. And now we're going back to it and go, oh, hey, look, you can call it the Steve Levy, whatever, footlock if you want to. But, you know, like there's a, you know, that John has the Surrette lock that he likes to do, you know, that he lets people take his back, and when they get their hooks in, he's got such big legs that he can footlock you.
Oh, yeah, he did today.
Yeah, well, there you go. There you go.
Well,
So
we can talk about it later. That's an interesting position.
But I'm just saying, like, you know, stuff like that. And just give them the names, but it's not like the guy invented it or, you know, something new. No, it's just. But different people will have different creative ways of doing different things, and maybe they'll do it in a way you've never seen it before, and you go like, wow, look at that, and that'll be the next new thing. Nice. Whether it be a leg lock or whether it be an arm lock or some crazy spinning flying arm bar, whatever. Somebody, because like I always say, like a lot of people talk to me and say, hey George, how come you don't compete professionally, blah 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 and whatever. I'm like, dude, like, yes, I'm a black belt, but I also know how to play basketball at the local court. Do you see me playing in the NBA? No, because it's just there's different type of human beings in the world, you know, and that's why you have these superior athletes that do these different tournaments, you know, because they're gifted naturally, you know what I mean?
Is your basketball skills as good as your jiu-jitsu skills?
I hope so. I was really good back in the day. I mean, I played Division I, so
you'll have to watch you play one day.
I played Division I. I know I can't dunk anymore, but back in the day I could dunk. I could still touch the rim, but you know, I'm 45, man. I can't dunk the ball anymore.
What do you think? Would you ever consider maybe doing your own DVD set on maybe the George system?
Oh, well, no, I wouldn't call it George.
Or, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I've actually been approached by people to do something like that.
Oh, cool.
So, you know.
That's something you might see in
no, absolutely.
In the near future, late future?
Yeah, no, probably in the near future.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Because, like I said, different people transmit things differently. So, like I said, like everybody who's a black belt doesn't know actually how to teach what they know. There's guys who are like, yeah, just do this, and hey, do that.
The Eric Paulson stuff we were talking about.
You know what I mean? And then you got guys like John Danaher, but he's like to the point where when you watch he's not giving you too many details, but he's, like I said, because he's teaching you concepts through movement.
Yeah. You might be able to
I would be more of a detail-oriented guy. Like, look, if you want to get this type of move, you really need to make sure that your hip is here and align with
you might just be able to explain it in a way that might
it'll be a different look at something.
And it might resonate with some people where maybe Danaher won't resonate with that person, but you'll resonate.
A heel hook is a heel hook is a heel hook. I don't care who tells you or who shows you, right? I'm just going to show you and present it to you in a different way, in a different manner.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any final thoughts for us? Maybe about jiu-jitsu, you're looking back at your career, where you might go in the future?
Well, I mean, always in the future, you're always looking to, everyone's always looking to open a school. I don't know if I would go that route. I don't know if I'd actually open a school, but maybe what I would do in the future is just do privates, you know? Because
you're doing that now, aren't you? Or?
I do private students in the morning, but I still have, you know, I teach, right? But, you know, the plan for my future, like I said, sometimes, you know, your personal life takes over your jiu-jitsu life. So the way my personal life is being directed, because I like jiu-jitsu, I like to think 3-4 steps ahead. So, you know, that next move for me might be a physical move from the East Coast to the West Coast. Just because of the way things are going. And if I do that, I might choose not to really have a gym in the sense of like we have it here, or an academy where, you know, you have 100 students, you have a facility and whatever. It might be more geared towards privates.
Not your own school, but like, hey, I'm George.
Look, let me tell you something, man. Because you have to think of it as, I love to do jiu-jitsu, and you know I love to teach. I love it. So, but also if you can make money off of teaching, dude, that's even the best, right? So what I would try and get myself into is teaching these actors privates. because how many actors now you see are doing, or how many famous people
Or do you want to go to Hollywood
do
and
you
do
see
like
doing?
Keanu Reeves?
Yes, something. Maybe not him,
Teaching him
but I'm
jujitsu.
just saying, because when you get onto these high end people, these people all they want to do is have a personal trainer that comes to their house. They don't want to go to a gym, because from what I see, because what I work for very wealthy people. They don't really want to mix with the rest of the 99%. If you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, they want to be
They're just
served.
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
They want you to come to them.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that would be something that I would definitely probably do.
So it's like what's that app now? Well, they'll bring the Uber Eats.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
exactly.
Jiu-jitsu.
Uber jiu-jitsu, man.
Jiu-jitsu delivered to your front door. Hey, that could be actually something. You never know.
And the best thing that I can do for that is to have experience.
Yes.
Meaning, you don't want to hire the guy who has 2 years experience. You want to hire the guy that has 10 years experience. And not only do you want to hire the guy that has 10 years experience, because maybe there's another guy that has 10 years experience, but dude, I got my belt under Master Martial.
Yeah, so now you can go.
So now I can be like, well, look at this whole lineage.
Yes.
Like, you're getting
right there.
real, true, authentic, traditional jiu-jitsu with what I've added to it.
It doesn't get much closer than where
Yeah,
we're at here.
yeah.
It really doesn't.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I hope you don't leave us too soon. I hope this isn't anything in the near future.
Nothing in the near future.
Okay, good.
I mean, like I said, I think about it 3/4. So there's several options right now, but that's like really the number one option is to move to the West Coast and do something along those lines.
Okay.
So.
Well, awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming
thank
out.
you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the beers, yo.
Well, anytime. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely,
If you end
man.
up doing the DVD set or something,
That's what I'd like to do,
Come
man.
on and we'll promote it and it'll
Yeah,
be great.
perfect,
All right,
man.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.